Story 1. My phone exploded with notifications as my wife posted on our neighborhood Facebook group, "Warning. My husband has been stealing packages from porches since October. I have proof. Keep your deliveries safe." When 3 neighbors commented that they'd had packages disappear, she replied, "Don't worry, I already contacted the police." I simply commented, "Please share that proof." Then I posted my location showing I was 50 miles away. That's when my neighbor from across the street wrote, "Check this video from my Ring camera." My wife went into panic mode. My name's Marcus, and I'm about to tell you how my wife tried to destroy my life on a Tuesday afternoon, and how life decided to return the favor in the most spectacular way possible. It started with my phone buzzing. Not unusual. I'm a network security consultant, so my phone is basically an extension of my hand. But this wasn't work. This was our neighborhood Facebook group, Pinewood Estates Community Watch, lighting up like a Christmas tree. The first notification: Sarah Chen tagged you in a post. Sarah Chen is my wife. Was my wife. The semantics are still complicated. I was sitting in a coffee shop 50 miles from home, wrapping up a client meeting about firewall configurations. Boring stuff that pays the bills. I swiped open the notification, and my stomach dropped through the floor. Warning. My husband has been stealing packages from porches since October. I have proof. Keep your deliveries safe. I read it 3 times. The words didn't change. My coffee tasted like copper. You know that metallic taste you get when you're absolutely blindsided? When your brain is trying to process something so absurd that it temporarily shuts down. The comments were already rolling in. Jennifer Morrison, "Oh my goodness. I've been missing packages. I thought it was just delivery errors." David Kettleman, "We had 3 packages disappear in the last month." 3. And you're telling me it was Marcus? Rebecca Yates, "I always thought he seemed so nice. You never really know people, do you?" And Sarah, my wife of 7 years, responding to each one with the same message: "Don't worry, I already contacted the police." My hands were trembling. Not from fear. From something darker. Something cold and calculating that I didn't know lived inside me until that exact moment. I typed out my response with surgical precision: "Please share that proof." Then I did something simple. Something that would change everything. I posted my location from the coffee shop's Wi-Fi network, showing the timestamp and the exact address. 50 miles from Pinewood Estates. 50 miles from where I'd apparently been conducting a 3-month package theft operation. The group went quiet. That eerie digital silence where you know everyone's reading but nobody's typing yet. Then Tom Rodriguez posted. Tom lives directly across the street from us, retired police sergeant, paranoid as they come. The man has more cameras than a convenience store. Check this video from my Ring camera. He uploaded a clip. Timestamp from yesterday, 2:47 p.m. Clear as day, Sarah walking across the street to Jennifer Morrison's porch. Looking around. Picking up a package. Walking back to our house. The comments exploded. My phone started ringing. Sarah. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. Text message: "Marcus, please call me, this is a misunderstanding." Another text: "I can explain everything." Another: "Please don't do anything stupid." Too late for that, Sarah. I sat in that coffee shop for another 20 minutes, watching the neighborhood group tear itself apart. More videos appeared. Tom had apparently been collecting footage for weeks, originally thinking we had a general theft problem. Turns out we did. Just not the one anyone expected. There was Sarah, November 3rd, taking a package from the Kettlemans. Sarah, October 28th, grabbing something from the Yates doorstep. Sarah, October 15th, walking casually back from the Morrison house with a small box under her arm. The timestamps lined up perfectly with every complaint. David Kettleman, "What the actual heck?" Jennifer Morrison, "Sarah? I don't understand. Why would you do this?" Rebecca Yates, "And you were going to let your husband take the fall?" That last comment sat there like a bomb. Because yeah, that's exactly what she was going to do. Frame me for theft. Send me to jail, probably. Destroy my career, definitely. And my life as I knew it. The question was why. I paid for my coffee and started the drive home. 50 miles of highway gave me plenty of time to think. To piece together the little things I've been ignoring for months. Sarah had been distant since summer. Claimed it was stress from her job at the marketing firm. I believed her because why wouldn't I? She was my wife. You're supposed to believe your wife. She'd been protective of her phone. Not suspicious protective, just careful. Angling it away when texts came in. Taking calls in the other room. She'd suggested I take on more out-of-town clients. Encouraged me to expand my territory. I thought she was being supportive of my career. Stupid. I'd been so incredibly stupid. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the neighborhood group had 247 comments. Tom Rodriguez had pinned his video compilation at the top. Sarah's original post was buried under an avalanche of disbelief and anger. Our house looked normal. Two-story colonial, blue shutters, the garden Sarah had spent months perfecting. Everything looked exactly the same as it had this morning when I'd left for my meeting. But nothing was the same. Sarah's car was in the garage. Lights on inside. I could see her shadow moving past the kitchen window. I sat in my car for a minute, trying to decide how to play this. The old Marcus would have stormed in, demanded explanations, probably yelled. But this new Marcus, the one born in a coffee shop an hour ago, wanted something different. I wanted to understand. And then I wanted justice. I walked in through the front door. Sarah was in the kitchen, phone in hand, pacing. Her eyes were red. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. When she saw me, she froze. Marcus, I held up my hand. Before you say anything, I want you to know I've already called my lawyer. That was a lie. I hadn't called anyone yet. But her face crumpled, and I knew I'd hit something. It's not what it looks like, she said. Classic. The most predictable lie in the history of predictable lies. It looks like you stole packages from our neighbors and tried to frame me for it. I was going to return them. When? After I was arrested? She sank into a kitchen chair. Her hands were shaking. Part of me, the part that had loved this woman for 7 years, wanted to comfort her. The rest of me wanted to watch her squirm. Why? I asked. Simple question. Not so simple answer. She was quiet for a long time. Outside, I could hear kids playing in the cul-de-sac. Normal neighborhood sounds. Inside, everything was shattering. I needed you gone, she finally said. Those 5 words hit harder than any confession of theft could have. Explain. She looked up at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Calculation. Cold, methodical calculation. I've been seeing someone. Since July. There it was. The truth underneath the truth. Who? Does it matter? Yeah, Sarah. It matters. She closed her eyes. Dylan. From work. Dylan. I'd met him twice. Young guy, maybe 26, worked in graphic design at her firm. Wore skinny jeans and had one of those deliberately messy haircuts. I'd thought he was harmless. Wrong again, Marcus. You tried to frame me for theft because you're having an affair? It's not that simple. Then simplify it for me. She stood up, defensive now. You're never here. You're always traveling, always working. Dylan actually pays attention to me. I laughed. Actually laughed. So your solution was to destroy my life? To send me to prison? I wasn't going to let it go that far. I needed leverage. For the divorce. And there it was. The real plan. Frame me for theft. Use it as grounds for divorce. Probably claim I was abusive or unstable. Take the house, take everything, ride off into the sunset with Dylan the graphic designer. The packages, I said. Why steal from the neighbors? I needed evidence. Real evidence. Something the police would take seriously. But you're the one who stole them. Nobody would have known that if Tom hadn't. She stopped. Realized what she was admitting. If Tom hadn't been watching, I finished. If he hadn't caught you on camera. Then I'd be in jail right now, wouldn't I? She didn't answer. Didn't need to. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Mr. Chen, this is Officer Patricia Walsh with Pinewood PD. We need to speak with you about a report your wife filed this morning. Please call me at your earliest convenience. I showed Sarah the text. Watched the color drain from her face. You actually called the police, I said. Before posting to Facebook. You really were going to do this. Marcus, please. We can fix this. We can tell them it was a mistake. We? I'll tell them I was wrong. I'll say I was confused. After Tom's videos? After the whole neighborhood saw you stealing? You think you can just say oops, my bad? She started crying. Real tears this time, not the manipulative kind. I'll go to jail. Probably. Marcus, please. We can work this out. I made a mistake. You made a lot of mistakes, Sarah. But the biggest one was thinking I wouldn't fight back. I pulled out my phone and called Officer Walsh. Put it on speaker. Officer Walsh? This is Marcus Chen. My wife Sarah posted something concerning on our neighborhood Facebook group today. I think you should see it, along with the video evidence our neighbor collected. I'm also happy to come in for a statement. Sarah's face went white. The officer's voice was professional, measured. Mr. Chen, we've actually already seen the social media posts and videos. We'd like to speak with both you and your wife. Can you come to the station? Of course. When? Now would be good. We'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up. Sarah was staring at me like I'd just sentenced her to death. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. Yeah, I said. I did. The drive to the police station was silent. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window. I kept my eyes on the road and my hands steady on the wheel. At the station, they separated us immediately. Officer Walsh was mid-40s, sharp eyes, the kind of cop who'd seen everything twice. She led me to an interview room. Coffee and water on the table. The universal language of long conversations ahead. Mr. Chen, I want to start by saying you're not in any trouble. We've reviewed the evidence, and it's clear you weren't involved in the thefts. Thank you. But I need to understand the timeline here. Your wife filed a report this morning claiming you'd been stealing packages. 3 hours later, she's on Facebook making the same accusation. Now we have video evidence showing she was the one taking the packages. Help me make sense of this. I told her everything. The affair. The distance. The convenient encouragement to take more out-of-town work. The pattern of behavior that, in hindsight, looked like premeditation. Officer Walsh took notes. Asked clarifying questions. When I finished, she sat back and exhaled slowly. This is a mess, she said. Yeah. Your wife is looking at multiple theft charges. Filing a false police report. Potentially witness tampering if we can prove she manipulated neighbors into supporting her story. What happens now? We're interviewing her separately. Then we'll need statements from your neighbors. The videos are solid evidence, but we need to document everything properly. And me? You're free to go. We'll need a formal statement, but that can wait until tomorrow. Go home, Mr. Chen. Get some rest. I didn't go home. I went to my brother's apartment. Jake opened the door in sweatpants and a food-stained t-shirt, beer in hand, confused why I was showing up at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. Dude, what's wrong? You look like death. I told him. Everything. Watched his expression cycle through disbelief, anger, and something close to murderous rage. She tried to frame you? For theft? To get leverage in a divorce? That's the summary, yeah. He handed me his beer. I don't drink, but I held it anyway. The cold bottle was something to focus on. What are you going to do? Good question. What was I going to do? Sarah was going to face charges. That was guaranteed. But there was more at play here. The affair. The premeditation. The casual willingness to destroy my life for convenience. I'm going to protect myself, I said. And then I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who she is. Jake nodded slowly. Need help? Maybe. Right now I need a place to crash. Guest room's yours. Stay as long as you want. I spent that night lying awake, staring at Jake's ceiling, thinking about 7 years of marriage. The good parts seemed hollow now. The proposal on the beach. The wedding with 200 guests. The way she'd laugh at my terrible jokes. All of it compromised. All of it suspect. My phone buzzed around midnight. Text from Sarah, I'm so sorry. Please come home. We need to talk. I didn't respond. Another text, the police are pressing charges. I need you. Still didn't respond. Third text, I love you. That has to count for something. That one almost broke me. Almost. But then I remembered her sitting in our kitchen, admitting she'd tried to frame me. Admitting she'd planned to use my arrest as leverage. Love doesn't do that. I blocked her number. Morning came with news. The neighborhood Facebook group had exploded overnight. Someone had created a timeline of Sarah's thefts cross-referenced with my work travel. Every package disappearance matched the day I was out of town. Jennifer Morrison posted, I feel sick. I actually felt sorry for her yesterday. I hugged her after she posted about Marcus. She was crying. What kind of person does this? David Kettleman, cold, calculated manipulation. That's what kind. She had this plan for months. Rebecca Yates, anyone else realize she was building a narrative? Every time Marcus traveled, suddenly packages went missing. She was setting him up from the beginning. Tom Rodriguez, the retired cop, posted a longer analysis. I've seen this kind of manipulation before. She likely started small, testing whether anyone would notice. When nobody caught on, she escalated. The Facebook post was the final play. Public accusation, fake police report, social pressure. If I hadn't had those cameras, Marcus would be facing serious charges right now. Everyone needs to understand how close this came to working. The comments under Tom's post were unanimous support for me and absolute vitriol toward Sarah. My phone rang. Lawyer this time. Real one. Stephen Park, criminal defense attorney, friend from college. I'd called him at 6 a.m. because I couldn't sleep and needed advice. Marcus, I've been reading through everything you sent me. This is bad. For her or for me? Definitely for her. But also complicated for you. You're going to need representation for the divorce proceedings, and this theft situation is going to factor heavily into how assets get divided. I don't care about assets. I want her out of my life. Understandable. But let's be smart. She tried to frame you. That's not just marital misconduct, that's criminal intent to harm you. We can use that. How? File for divorce immediately. Cite her criminal behavior as grounds. Push for fault-based divorce, which in your state means she gets nothing. No house, no savings, no alimony. Can we actually do that? With the evidence we have? Absolutely. Plus, once her criminal charges are public record, which they will be very soon, the court will have no sympathy for her position. Something twisted in my chest. Relief, maybe. Or vindication. Do it, I said. I'll have papers drawn up today. You can serve her by end of week. Stephen? Yeah? Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly before it gets better. He was right. By Wednesday afternoon, local news had picked up the story. Local woman accused of frame job gone wrong was the headline on Channel 7's website. They'd interviewed Tom Rodriguez, who'd given them the whole story, complete with video evidence. Sarah's face was on television. Her name. Her workplace. By Thursday morning, she'd been suspended from her job pending investigation. By Friday, Dylan, the graphic designer, had posted on his Instagram that he was taking time to focus on personal growth and had unfollowed Sarah on every platform. Rats and sinking ships, as they say. I served her divorce papers Friday afternoon. Went to the house with a police escort, packed a bag of essentials, and handed her the envelope while Officer Walsh stood in our driveway. Sarah looked destroyed. Hair unwashed, clothes rumpled, eyes hollow. Marcus, please. We need to talk. Talk to my lawyer. I never meant for it to go this far. You called the police. You posted on Facebook. You stole from our neighbors and tried to pin it on me. Which part of that wasn't supposed to go far? She didn't have an answer. I grabbed my laptop, some clothes, and a box of personal items. Everything else could wait. As I walked past her, she grabbed my arm. I still love you. I looked at her hand on my sleeve. Looked at her face. Saw a stranger. No, you don't, I said. You love the idea of not facing consequences. I left. Didn't look back. The weekend was quiet. Too quiet. I stayed at Jake's, caught up on work, avoided social media. My phone was full of messages from friends, family, neighbors, former colleagues. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone was sorry. Everyone was shocked. I wasn't shocked anymore. I was numb. Monday morning, I got a call from Stephen. Marcus, we have a problem. My stomach tightened. What kind of problem? Sarah's lawyer is pushing a counter-narrative. They're claiming you were emotionally abusive, that she was scared of you, that the package thing was her trying to gather evidence of your erratic behavior to protect herself. That's insane. It's strategic. If they can paint you as the villain, it muddies the water. Makes her look like a victim. But there's video evidence of her stealing. Which they're claiming was her documenting suspicious activity in the neighborhood that she thought you were involved in. It's flimsy, but it's something. Can they actually make that stick? Not with what we have. But it'll make the divorce messier. Longer. More expensive. I closed my eyes. What do? We prove your character. We get statements from everyone. Employers, friends, neighbors. We document your whereabouts during every single theft. We make it impossible for her narrative to gain traction. Fine. Whatever it takes. There's something else. Of course there is. Sarah's pregnant. The world tilted sideways. What? She told her lawyer. 4 weeks along. She's going to claim it's yours. I did the math in my head. 4 weeks. Early November. I've been home for our anniversary weekend. Is it mine? DNA test will tell us for sure. But Marcus, if she's telling the truth about the timeline, it could be. Or it could be Dylan's. Or someone else's. I didn't know anything anymore. We need that test. Already put in the motion. Her lawyer is fighting it, but the judge will order it. I hung up and sat in Jake's living room, trying to process. A baby. Sarah was pregnant. The woman who'd tried to destroy me was carrying a child that might be mine. Life has a sick sense of humor. Jake came home from work and found me staring at the wall. What happened? I told him. He sat down hard on the couch. Oh my. Yeah. What are you going to do? I don't know. Wait for the DNA test. Hope it's not mine. Feel terrible for hoping that. Marcus, you can't blame yourself for this. She made her choices. I know. But if it's mine, then you'll figure it out. But you don't have to stay married to her. You don't have to forgive her. Biology doesn't erase what she did. He was right. I knew he was right. But it didn't make any of this easier. The next 2 weeks were a blur of legal meetings, depositions, and endless documentation. I provided my work records, showing every day I'd been out of town. Time-stamped emails. GPS data from my car. Credit card statements from hotels and restaurants 50, 100, 200 miles away from Pinewood Estates. Stephen compiled it into a timeline that was airtight. Every package theft occurred on a day I could prove I was somewhere else. The defense, Sarah's lawyer, was trying to build, collapsed under basic scrutiny. The criminal charges moved forward. 3 counts of theft. 1 count of filing a false police report. The DA was pushing for jail time. Our neighbors gave statements. Every single one. The Facebook group thread was submitted as evidence. Tom Rodriguez's videos were analyzed by forensics. And through it all, I waited for the DNA results. They came on a Wednesday. Stephen called me at work. "Marcus, I have the results." My heart stopped. "It's not yours." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. "You're sure?" "Completely. 0 match. The baby isn't yours." "Does her lawyer know?" "Just got the notification. I imagine we'll hear from them soon." We did. 2 hours later. Sarah's lawyer dropped the pregnancy angle completely. Stopped fighting the fault-based divorce. Started negotiating terms of surrender. Sarah herself sent one final text, somehow bypassing my block: "I'm sorry for everything. Please believe me. It wasn't supposed to be like this." I showed it to Stephen. He documented it and filed it with the court. I never responded. The divorce was finalized in early March. Sarah got nothing. No house, no savings, no alimony. She'd signed the papers without contesting, too exhausted or ashamed to fight anymore. The criminal trial was scheduled for April. In the meantime, I moved on. Found a new apartment. Threw myself into work. Started seeing a therapist because Jake insisted, and he was right to insist. The therapist, Dr. Ramirez, had me work through everything. The betrayal. The violation of trust. The paranoia that came after, where I questioned every interaction, every relationship, wondering who else might be lying. "Trust is rebuilt slowly," she told me. "But it can be rebuilt. This doesn't have to define you." I wanted to believe her. April came. Sarah pleaded guilty to avoid trial. She got 2 years probation, community service, restitution to our neighbors, and her name on a permanent record. Dylan, I heard through the neighborhood gossip chain, had moved to another state. The baby was his, confirmed through another DNA test her lawyer had insisted on. He'd signed away parental rights and disappeared. Sarah moved in with her parents. Lost her job permanently. Became the cautionary tale of our neighborhood. I should have felt vindicated. Should have felt like justice was served. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of going over everything in my mind. Tired of wondering where it all went wrong. Dr. Ramirez said that was progress. That moving from rage to exhaustion to acceptance was part of healing. I hoped she was right. Summer arrived. I started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and dinners with people from dating apps. Testing the waters of trust. A woman named Linda, teacher, funny, kind, asked me on our 3rd date why I seemed so guarded. I told her the truth. All of it. She listened. Didn't run. Didn't judge. "That's awful," she said. "But it's not who you are. It's something that happened to you." Simple words. But they hit differently coming from someone who had no stake in my healing. "I'm trying to remember that," I said. "Keep trying," she said. "You'll get there." We dated for a while. It didn't work out long term, different life goals, different timelines, but she taught me something important. That not everyone was Sarah. That trust could exist again. By fall, I was genuinely okay. Not perfect. Not fully healed. But okay. The neighborhood group had moved on to other dramas. Tom Rodriguez's cameras had caught another theft, actual theft this time, and everyone rallied together to catch the guy. Life continued. I saw Sarah once, by accident, at the grocery store in December. She looked smaller somehow. Older. She saw me, froze, then turned and walked the other way. I didn't follow. Didn't call out. Just continued shopping. Later that night, I got a message request on Facebook. From Sarah. "I know I don't deserve anything from you. Not forgiveness, not understanding, nothing. But I need you to know I'm getting help. Real help. Therapy, medication, everything. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. I'm trying to be better. Not for you. Not to get you back. Just to be better. I hope you're okay. I hope you're happy. You deserved better than what I did to you. I'm sorry. I'll always be sorry." I read it 3 times. Considered responding. Considered blocking her again. In the end, I just closed the message and went to bed. Some things don't need a response. Some chapters close without neat endings or final conversations. That's okay. I'm okay. Most days, anyway. The whole thing still lives in the neighborhood's collective memory. New residents get warned about the time someone tried to frame their spouse and got caught by Ring cameras. It's become local legend. Tom Rodriguez gives talks at community watch meetings about home security. Shows his video compilation as a teaching tool. I'm both grateful and exhausted by it. But here's what I learned: people will surprise you. Sometimes in terrible ways. Sometimes in ways that restore your faith in humanity. Jake let me live with him rent-free for 4 months. Stephen reduced his legal fees because we were friends. My neighbors testified without hesitation. Dr. Ramirez worked with me through panic attacks and trust issues with patients I didn't know existed. And I survived something I didn't think I could survive. That has to count for something. So yeah, my wife tried to frame me for theft, got caught by neighborhood Ring cameras, and destroyed her own life in the process. It's wild. It's unbelievable. It sounds like something from a movie. But it happened. It was real. And I'm still here, still standing, still learning to trust again. Still moving forward. The scars are there. Probably always will be. Sometimes I catch myself being suspicious when I shouldn't be. Sometimes I overanalyze innocent situations. But I'm aware of it now. Working on it. Getting better. And sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I think about that moment in the coffee shop when I saw Sarah's post. That split second where my world inverted. I think about how close it came. How if Tom hadn't had those cameras, if he hadn't been watching, if he hadn't spoken up, I'd be the one with a criminal record. I'd be the neighborhood pariah. It's terrifying how easily a life can be destroyed by someone who's supposed to love you. But it's also incredible how quickly people can come together to expose the truth. I don't know if that's hopeful or horrifying. Maybe it's both. What I do know is this: I'm not the same person I was before. I'm more cautious. More careful. More aware of the masks people wear. But I'm also more grateful. For real friends. For honest neighbors. For second chances. And for Tom Rodriguez's paranoid love of security cameras. That Ring doorbell saved my life. I bought him a bottle of expensive scotch after the trial ended. Showed up at his door, handed it to him, and just said, "Thank you." He nodded, understood everything I wasn't saying, and invited me in for dinner with his wife. We're friends now. Real friends. The kind built on shared trauma and mutual respect. That's something Sarah's betrayal couldn't take from me. So if you're reading this and thinking about your own relationships, your own trust, your own vulnerabilities, I guess my advice is this: trust, but verify. Love, but don't be blind. Give people the benefit of the doubt, but don't ignore red flags. And maybe invest in some good security cameras. You never know when they might save your life. As for Sarah, I genuinely hope she gets the help she needs. I hope she figures out whatever broke inside her that made her think destroying me was the solution to her problems. But that's her journey now. Not mine. Mine is about rebuilding. About learning. About figuring out who Marcus is after everything fell apart. Some days I know. Some days I'm still figuring it out. But I'm here. I'm free. I'm okay. And honestly, after everything? That's enough. The story could end there. Clean resolution, lessons learned, moving forward. But there's one more thing. One last piece that still bothers me sometimes. About 3 months after everything settled, I got a package at my new apartment. No return address. Just my name and the address. Inside was a thumb drive. No note. No explanation. Just the drive. I almost threw it away. Almost. But curiosity won. I plugged it into an old laptop I keep offline for exactly these kinds of situations. Paranoia, maybe. But given everything, justified paranoia. The drive had one video file. Dated July, before any of the package theft started. I clicked play. It was Sarah and Dylan. In our house. In our bedroom. But that's not what made my blood run cold. They were talking. Planning. And I could hear every word. When should we start? Dylan's voice. Soon. I need to establish a pattern. Sarah's voice. You're sure this will work? Trust me. I've done the research. False accusations stick. Even when they're disproven, people always wonder. His career will be over. And then? Then we can be together. New city. Fresh start. His money, our future. You really think he won't fight? He's too nice. Too trusting. He'll roll over. Laughing. They were laughing. The video ended. I sat there for a long time, staring at the blank screen. Someone had sent me proof that this wasn't a desperate mistake. It wasn't Sarah panicking during an affair. It was premeditated. Planned. Calculated from the very beginning. I never found out who sent the drive. Tom Rodriguez denied it. Stephen Park denied it. Even Jake swore he had nothing to do with it. Someone out there knew. Someone had evidence of just how deep Sarah's betrayal went. And they made sure I knew too. I gave the drive to Stephen. He gave it to the DA. It didn't change Sarah's sentence, she'd already pleaded guilty, but it did change how I saw everything. There was no moment where things went wrong. No point where Sarah made a bad choice and spiraled. She'd planned my destruction from the beginning. Methodically. Carefully. The affair wasn't the cause. It was just a convenient excuse. That knowledge should have made me angrier. Should have reignited the rage. Instead, it just made me sad. Sad that I'd loved someone capable of that. Sad that I'd been so blind. Sad that 7 years of my life were built on a foundation that never existed. But also grateful. Grateful I'd escaped. Grateful the truth came out. Grateful I got to rebuild. I still have the drive. Locked in a safe deposit box. Evidence of how close I came to losing everything. Sometimes I think about watching it again. Reminding myself why trusting too easily is dangerous. But mostly I just leave it there. Physical proof that I survived. That I'm stronger than I thought. That I'm free. And on the really good days, I don't think about it at all. That's when I know I'm truly healing. The rest is just life. Moving forward. One day at a time. With better security cameras. And a lot more caution. But also hope. Always hope. Because if I can survive this, I can survive anything. And maybe that's the real lesson. Not that people will betray you. Not that trust is dangerous. But that you're stronger than the worst thing that happens to you. You're more than someone else's cruelty. You're the person who survives. Who rebuilds. Who learns. Who keeps going. That's me now. And I'm okay with that. Except for the nightmares. Nobody tells you about those. About how your brain processes betrayal while you sleep. How you wake up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, convinced you heard Sarah's voice in your apartment. How you check the locks twice, 3 times, even though you know she has no way to get in. Dr. Ramirez said it was normal. Post-traumatic stress. Your mind trying to protect you from threats that no longer exist. Give it time, she said. The brain needs to recalibrate. It learned that danger could come from the person you trusted most. Now it has to unlearn that everywhere else. Time. Everyone kept telling me I needed time. 6 months after the divorce finalized, I got a call from Jennifer Morrison. Haven't mentioned her much, but she was the neighbor Sarah stole from first. The one whose package started this whole mess. Marcus? I hope I'm not overstepping, but there's something you should know. My stomach clenched. I'd learned to hate sentences that started that way. What is it? Sarah's been coming around. To the neighborhood. She drives by slowly, parks sometimes at the end of the street. Tom's cameras picked her up 4 times this month. I closed my eyes. Of course. Of course she couldn't just stay away. Has she approached anyone? Not directly. But Rebecca saw her sitting in her car outside your old house. The new owners called the police once. She left before they arrived. I'll handle it. Marcus, be careful. I know she's your ex-wife, but what she did. People who plan things like that don't just stop. She was right. I knew she was right. I called Stephen Park. We need a restraining order. He didn't argue. Didn't ask questions. Just said, I'll file tomorrow. Document everything. If she contacts you in any way, let me know immediately. The restraining order went through in a week. Sarah was served at her parents' house. I wasn't there, but her mother called me afterward. First time we'd spoken since the divorce. Marcus, please. Sarah's not well. She's been in and out of therapy, but she's struggling. She just wants closure. Mrs. Patterson, with all due respect, Sarah tried to send me to prison. She planned it for months. Closure isn't something she gets to demand. I know what she did was wrong. Wrong? She stole from our neighbors and blamed me. She had an affair and tried to destroy my career. She lied to police. That's not wrong, that's criminal. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, you're right. I'm sorry. She's my daughter. I'm watching her fall apart, and I don't know how to help her. Something in her voice cracked through my anger. This woman had raised Sarah. Had no idea the person her daughter would become. Was living with the shame of it every day. Mrs. Patterson, I'm sorry for what you're going through. I really am. But Sarah needs to stay away from me. From that neighborhood. From anything connected to our old life. That's not negotiable. I understand. I'll make sure she respects the order. She hung up. I sat there feeling hollow. No victory in that conversation. Just exhaustion. The restraining order worked. For a while. Then came the emails. They started arriving at my work address. No idea how she got it, probably still had access to old files. Each one the same desperate tone. Marcus, please just talk to me. I need you to understand. I'm getting help. Real help this time. I'm not the person I was. Do you ever think about the good times? We had good times. That has to mean something. I forwarded them all to Stephen. Documented. Filed. Added to the pile of evidence that Sarah couldn't let go. The email stopped after Stephen sent her lawyer a cease and desist letter. But they were replaced by something worse. Social media accounts. Fake ones, with random names and profile pictures. Following me on every platform. Commenting on my posts. Nothing threatening. Nothing obvious. Just there. Watching. Tom Rodriguez, retired cop, paranoid security expert, noticed before I did. Marcus, you've got some weird accounts following you. Check the patterns. They all appeared in the same week. All follow the same people you follow. All comment within minutes of each other. He was right. 16 fake accounts, all created in March, all tracking my online presence. I went private on everything. Blocked them all. But the skin-crawling feeling of being watched didn't go away. She's obsessed, Dr. Ramirez said during our session. This isn't about love or reconciliation. It's about control. She had control of your narrative once, and she's desperate to get it back. What do I do? Keep documenting. Keep the restraining order active. And Marcus? Consider going completely dark online for a while. No posts, no updates. Starve the obsession. I took her advice. Deleted my Facebook. Made my Instagram private with 0 posts. LinkedIn stayed professional only. Twitter disappeared entirely. The silence was strange at first. Isolating. But also liberating. Without the constant fear of Sarah watching my digital life, I could breathe again. Spring turned to summer. I started training for a marathon. Something to focus on that wasn't work or therapy or legal documents. Just miles and miles of pavement, my thoughts, and the rhythm of my feet. Running became meditation. Became therapy in motion. On a Tuesday morning in June, I was halfway through a 10-mile route when I saw her. Sarah. Standing on a corner 3 blocks from my apartment. Not hiding. Not pretending she wasn't there. Just standing, watching me run toward her. I stopped. Every instinct screamed to turn around. To run the other direction. But I was done running from her. You're violating the restraining order, I said. Calm. Factual. I know. Her voice was different. Flat. Empty. I'm calling the police. I know, she said again. I wanted to see you one more time before I left. Left? I'm moving. Oregon. My aunt has a place. Fresh start. Away from all of this. I pulled out my phone. Dialed 911. Kept my eyes on her while I reported the violation. They'll be here in 5 minutes, I said. I just need you to know something. Sarah, don't. I loved you. I really did. Everything that happened, everything I did, it started from a place of love. It just got twisted. I got twisted. You tried to destroy me. I know. For money. For an affair. For convenience. I know. Tears now. Real ones. I hate who I became. I hate that I hurt you. I hate that I can't take it back. The sirens were getting closer. Oregon's a good idea, I said. You should go. Start over. Get the help you need. But Sarah? Don't ever contact me again. Not in 5 years. Not in 20. We're done. Forever. She nodded. Wiped her face. I'm sorry. For everything. I hope you find someone who deserves you. I hope you're happy. The police car pulled up. 2 officers stepped out. Sarah put her hands up, compliant, cooperative. I'm leaving, she told them. He was just telling me to leave. They looked at me for confirmation. I nodded. Ma'am, you're in violation of a restraining order. We need to take you in. I understand. They cuffed her. Gentle but firm. Put her in the back of the squad car. She looked at me one last time through the window. I couldn't read her expression. Regret, maybe. Or resignation. Then they drove away. I stood on that corner for a long time after they left. People walked past. Life continued around me. Normal Tuesday morning in the city. But something had shifted. Some final thread connecting me to Sarah had been cut. She went to jail for 48 hours for violating the restraining order. Posted bail. Her lawyer negotiated with the court. Part of her probation was modified. She was allowed to relocate to Oregon under strict conditions. No contact with me. No returning to our state without court approval. Her parents moved her 2 weeks later. I know because Mrs. Patterson called one last time. She's gone, Marcus. She won't bother you anymore. I made her promise me. Thank you. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it. You were a good son-in-law. You didn't deserve any of this. Neither did you, Mrs. Patterson. Take care of yourself. You too. That was the last time I heard from anyone in Sarah's family. The neighborhood threw a block party that summer. First time in years. Tom Rodriguez organized it, but everyone suspected it was partly about reclaiming the community after everything that had happened. I almost didn't go. Didn't want to be the guy everyone whispered about. The one whose drama had dominated the Facebook group for months. But Jake convinced me. You didn't do anything wrong. Stop hiding like you did. Show up. Eat some burgers. Remind people you're a normal guy who got screwed over and survived. So I went. It was awkward at first. People weren't sure how to act around me. Too much sympathy felt patronizing. Too little felt callous. But then Tom Rodriguez handed me a spatula and put me on grill duty, and suddenly I was just another neighbor cooking food and making small talk. Rebecca Yates' kid asked me about network security for her school project. David Kettleman wanted advice on his home Wi-Fi setup. Jennifer Morrison introduced me to her sister, visiting from out of state, with a look in her eye that suggested matchmaking. I deflected politely. Wasn't ready for that. But the gesture meant something. By the end of the night, I'd laughed more than I had in months. Real laughs. The kind that come from belonging somewhere. As people packed up, Tom pulled me aside. You doing okay? Really okay? Getting there. Good. You know, I've been a cop for 30 years. Seen a lot of bad situations. Lot of people who don't recover from betrayal like that. But you're doing it. You're putting yourself back together. That takes strength. I had help. You, especially. If you hadn't had those cameras. But I did. And you had the guts to fight back when it would have been easier to just crumble. That's all you, Marcus. Don't forget that. I went home that night feeling something I hadn't felt in over a year. Hopeful. Not naive hope. Not the blind trust I'd had before. But realistic, cautious, earned hope. The kind that comes from surviving something terrible and discovering you're stronger than you thought. Fall arrived with opportunities I hadn't expected. My company promoted me. Senior security consultant. Better pay, better projects, better recognition of the work I'd been doing all along. My therapist and I agreed to move to monthly sessions instead of weekly. Progress. I started volunteering at a community center, teaching basic internet safety to seniors. Something about helping other people protect themselves felt right. Purposeful. And I started dating again. Really dating, not just coffee meetings and first date small talk. Her name was Denise. Software engineer. Met her at an industry conference where I was speaking about network vulnerabilities. She was smart, funny, direct. Asked me on our second date about my divorce. I don't need all the details, she said. But I need to know if you're still carrying that weight. Because I'm not interested in being someone's rebound or therapy project. I appreciated the honesty. Told her the whole story. Watched her face cycle through shock, anger, and something like admiration. You handled that better than most people would have, she said. But are you over it? Was I? I'm over her, I said. I'm not over being cautious. I'm not over checking for red flags. I'm not over being careful with trust. I don't know if I'll ever be completely over that. That's fair, she said. I can work with that. We took it slow. Painfully slow by modern dating standards. But slow felt right. She met Jake after 3 months. Met Tom Rodriguez after 4. Met the neighborhood crew at a holiday party after 6. Everyone liked her. More importantly, I liked her. Liked how she didn't try to fix me or save me. Just let me be whoever I was becoming. By Christmas, I realized I hadn't thought about Sarah in weeks. Hadn't checked over my shoulder for fake social media accounts. Hadn't woken up from nightmares about false accusations. The scars were still there. Probably always would be. But they'd faded. Become part of my history instead of my present. New Year's Eve, Denise and I were at Jake's apartment with a dozen friends. Countdown started. 10, 9, 8. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Message preview. I heard you're happy now. I'm glad. You deserve it. S. I showed Denise. She read it, looked at me carefully. How do you feel? Like she should have kept her promise to stay gone. Are you going to respond? I deleted the message. Blocked the number. Put my phone away. Already did. The countdown hit 0. Fireworks outside. Champagne and hugs and the promise of new beginnings. Denise kissed me at midnight, and for the first time in 2 years, I didn't think about Sarah at all. Just the present. Just the future. Just moving forward. 3 months later, I got a notification that my restraining order was expiring. Stephen called to ask if I wanted to renew it. Has she contacted you? Once. New Year's Eve. I blocked the number. That's a violation. We could pursue it. No, I said. Let it expire. I don't need a court order to stay away from her. I just need to keep living my life. You're sure? I'm sure. The order expired in March. No fanfare. No final confrontation. Just paperwork filed away and a chapter officially closed. I expected to feel something. Relief, maybe. Or anxiety about losing that legal protection. Instead, I felt nothing. Sarah was just a person now. Not a threat. Not a source of pain. Just someone I used to know who made terrible choices. That indifference was the sweetest victory of all. Denise and I moved in together that spring. Nothing dramatic. Just a natural progression. Her lease was up, my apartment had space, we spent most nights together anyway. The first night in our shared place, she asked me something I'd been waiting for. Do you trust me? Yes. Completely? I thought about it. Really thought about it. About all the ways Sarah had broken that trust. About all the careful walls I'd built to protect myself. I trust you, I said. But there are parts of me that are still learning how. That still flinch at things that probably don't deserve flinching. Can you live with that? As long as you're trying. As long as you're not punishing me for her mistakes. I'm trying. Then we're good. And we were. The story could end here. Happy ending, new relationship, life rebuilt. But there's one more thing. One last piece that brought everything full circle. Summer of the following year, I got an email from Mrs. Patterson. First contact in over 18 months. Marcus, I wanted you to know that Sarah passed away last week. It was an accident. Car crash in Oregon. She didn't suffer. The funeral is private, but I thought you should know. I'm not asking you to grieve. I know she hurt you beyond measure. But she was trying to change. Her therapist said she'd made real progress. I wanted you to know that. Whatever that's worth. Take care of yourself. I read the email 5 times. Sarah was dead. The woman who tried to destroy me. Who planned my downfall. Who haunted me for 2 years. Gone. I should have felt something. Relief. Vindication. Closure. Instead, I just felt sad. Sad for Mrs. Patterson, losing her daughter. Sad for the person Sarah might have been if she'd gotten help sooner. Sad for all the destruction her choices caused. But not sad for myself. Not anymore. I showed Denise the email. Are you okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. I think I am. I didn't go to the funeral. Didn't send flowers. Didn't reach out to her family. But I did something Dr. Ramirez had suggested years ago. Something I'd been putting off because it felt too final. I wrote Sarah a letter. Not to send, she was gone, but to get out everything I'd never said. I wrote about the betrayal. The anger. The fear. The way she'd changed me. The way I'd had to rebuild. But I also wrote about forgiveness. Not the kind where I excused what she did. The kind where I let go of carrying it with me. I burned the letter in our fireplace. Watched the pages curl and blacken and disappear. Denise sat with me while it burned. Held my hand. Didn't say anything. When the last ash died, I felt lighter. Free. 2 years ago, my life imploded because someone I loved tried to destroy me. Today, I'm sitting in an apartment I share with someone I trust. Working a job I love. Connected to a community that supported me. Healing in ways I didn't think possible. The scars are still there. I'm still more cautious than I used to be. Still check locks twice. Still notice when someone's story doesn't add up. But I'm also happy. Genuinely, completely happy. And that's the real revenge, isn't it? Not getting even. Not watching someone suffer. Not holding on to anger until it poisons everything. Just living well. Building something good. Refusing to let someone else's cruelty define you. Sarah tried to destroy me and destroyed herself instead. I survived. Rebuilt. Thrived. That's enough. That's everything. And if there's a moral to this whole mess, it's this: people will surprise you. Sometimes in terrible ways. Sometimes in ways that restore your faith in humanity. But you're stronger than the worst thing that happens to you. You're more than someone else's betrayal. You're whoever you choose to become after. Choose wisely. Choose to survive. Choose to live. That's what I did. And I'm still here. Still standing. Still okay. Better than okay, actually. I'm good. Really, truly good. And that's the best ending I could have asked for. Story 2.
At my wedding rehearsal dinner, my mother stood up and announced, "We're not paying for this circus, she picked the wrong man." My fiancé and I exchanged glances. I replied perfect and got the security to kick her out. The same night she texted, "Don't forget the mortgage payment and the Tesla car loan payments are tomorrow." I didn't argue, I just. My name is Sarah, I'm 28, and 3 months ago I thought I was losing my mind. My fiancé Marcus kept asking me why I flinched every time my phone buzzed. Why I checked my bank account 7 times a day. Why I cried in the shower where he couldn't hear me. I couldn't explain it because I didn't understand it myself. All I knew was that something was very, very wrong, and I was too exhausted to figure out what. But that rehearsal dinner? That was the night everything crystallized into perfect, terrible clarity. The Valencia room was gorgeous that Friday evening. String lights draped across exposed brick, long tables set with eucalyptus runners and cream-colored candles. My future in-laws had flown in from Atlanta. Marcus's sister brought her new baby. Our friends filled the space with actual joy, the kind that makes your chest feel warm instead of tight. For 2 whole hours, I forgot to be afraid. Then my mother stood up. She didn't ask for the microphone. She just rose from her seat at the head table, her wine glass catching the light, her smile sharp as broken glass. The room quieted the way rooms do when they sense something about to shatter. "I think it's time for some honesty," she announced, voice carrying across the space with practiced projection. My mother was a real estate agent. She knew how to command a room. "Robert and I have been thinking long and hard about this wedding, and we've come to a decision." My father, seated beside her, looked down at his plate. He always looked down. "We're not paying for this circus," she continued, gesturing broadly at the room, at the flowers, at everything we'd planned. "Sarah has picked the wrong man. We can't in good conscience support a marriage we don't believe in." The silence was the kind that presses against your eardrums. Someone's fork clinked against a plate. Marcus's hand found mine under the table, his grip steady, questioning. I could feel 60 pairs of eyes on me, waiting for me to crumble, to beg, to make a scene. Instead, something inside me clicked into place. Like a bone setting after being broken too long. I stood up slowly, smoothed my dress, and smiled at my mother with every tooth showing. "Perfect." Her expression flickered, confusion chasing surprise chasing irritation. She hadn't expected perfect. She'd expected tears, pleading, humiliation. That's what she'd come for. I turned to Marcus's cousin Derek, who'd been working security for events since college. "Derek, could you please escort my mother and father out? They're no longer welcome at our celebration." "Sarah Elizabeth," my mother started, her voice rising. "Now, please," I said to Derek, not looking at her. Looking at her gave her power, and I was done feeding that beast. Derek moved with professional efficiency. My mother's protests echoed off the brick walls as he and another groomsman guided her toward the exit. My father followed silently, as always, his shoulders curved inward like a question mark that had given up asking. When the door closed behind them, I picked up my glass and raised it slightly. "Thank you all for being here tonight. Marcus and I are paying for our own wedding. We're paying for our own lives. And we wouldn't have it any other way." The applause that followed felt like surfacing from deep water. Marcus pulled me close as I sat down, his lips against my ear. "Are you okay?" I nodded, but my hands were shaking so hard I had to tuck them between my knees. The adrenaline was beginning to leak away, leaving something colder in its place. I'd just done the unthinkable. I'd said no to my mother in front of everyone who mattered. The text came through at 11:30 that night, just as Marcus and I were getting ready for bed in our apartment. "Don't forget the mortgage payment and the Tesla car loan payments are tomorrow. Both accounts will overdraft without the transfers from your account. You know how Dad's credit can't handle that. But I'm sure you don't care about family anymore." I stared at the message until the words blurred. Marcus came up behind me, reading over my shoulder. "What mortgage?" he asked quietly. "What Tesla?" That's when I started talking, and once I started, I couldn't stop. It began when I was 22, fresh out of college with my first real job in graphic design. My mother called crying. My father had made some bad investments. They were going to lose the house I grew up in, the house that held all our memories. Could I help? Just temporarily. Just until they got back on their feet. I co-signed the mortgage refinance. $60,000 of their debt, now legally mine too. They promised to make every payment. I'd never have to worry about it. Then, 6 months later, my father needed a car for work. His old truck had died. Without reliable transportation, he'd lose his contractor job. Could I help? Just this once. Just to get him mobile again. I co-signed the Tesla loan. My mother insisted on the Tesla. "He deserves something nice for once in his life," she'd said. "You can afford it with that fancy job of yours." $55,000. Also legally mine. The promises continued. They'd make every payment. I'd never see a bill. My credit would actually improve from the payment history. But here's what they didn't tell me: They'd been making the minimum payments with transfers from my account. Automatic transfers I'd authorized just as backup, just in case. Except the backup had become the primary, and somehow 6 years had passed with me hemorrhaging money I barely noticed was gone. $700 a month for the mortgage. $800 for the Tesla. Plus the insurance, the property taxes, the maintenance my mother insisted were emergencies. Nearly $2,000 a month, vanishing from my account before I could think about it. I'd been so careful with my own rent, my own bills. I packed lunches and skipped trips and bought store-brand everything because I was saving for the wedding. Except I wasn't saving. I was barely breaking even, treading water while my mother's weight pressed down on my shoulders, pushing me under inch by inch. "Why didn't you tell me?" Marcus asked, and there was no judgment in his voice, only concern. "Because I didn't realize," I whispered. "Not fully. I knew money was tight. I knew I couldn't afford much. But I never sat down and actually looked at where it was all going. And when I felt stressed about money, my mother would say things like, 'You make good money, you should be comfortable, maybe you're just bad with budgeting.' She'd gaslit me into thinking I was the problem. That I was financially irresponsible, careless, unable to manage my own life. And I believed her because daughters believe their mothers, especially when their mothers have spent 28 years training them to accept cruelty as love." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "What do you want to do?" I looked at the text message again. Read it one more time. Let myself feel the threat hidden in the concern, the manipulation wrapped in family obligation. And I made a decision that would change everything. I didn't argue. I just logged into my bank account and removed every automatic payment authorization connected to my parents' loans. Every single one. Then I sent my mother a screenshot of the confirmation page with a single message: "You said you weren't paying for the circus. I'm not paying for your life anymore. Figure it out." I blocked her number before she could respond. Blocked my father's too. Then I turned off my phone and let Marcus hold me while I shook apart. I wish I could say I felt victorious in that moment, triumphant and free. But the truth is, I felt terrified. My mother had controlled my life for so long that cutting the strings felt like falling, and I didn't know if there was ground beneath me or just more darkness. The wedding was 4 weeks away. The next morning, Saturday, I woke up to 17 missed calls on Marcus's phone. All from my mother's friends, my aunts, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. The family network had been activated, and the message was unanimous: I was selfish, ungrateful, destroying my family over one little disagreement. "She's your mother," Aunt Linda's voicemail said. "She raised you. Fed you. Sacrificed everything for you. And this is how you repay her?" I let Marcus listen to them while I made coffee with hands that still trembled. He deleted each one after listening, his jaw getting tighter with each message. "They're all saying the same thing," he observed. "Like they got a script." "Because they did," I said. "My mother excels at crafting narratives. She's probably told them I'm having a breakdown. That Marcus is controlling me. That I've abandoned my family in their time of need. What about the truth? The truth doesn't matter when my mother is telling a story. She's been doing this my whole life. Anytime I pushed back, questioned her, tried to establish a boundary, suddenly I was the problem. And she'd recruit everyone to tell me so." I sat down at our small kitchen table, wrapping both hands around my mug. The coffee was too hot, burning my palms through the ceramic, but I needed the sensation. Needed to feel something concrete and real. There was this time in 8th grade, I heard myself saying. I made honor roll, straight A's, worked incredibly hard all semester. I was so proud. I came home waving the report card, and she looked at it for maybe 3 seconds before saying, "Well, you're still terrible at math. That B+ is embarrassing." Then she went into her room and didn't speak to me for 2 days. Marcus set his phone down. "That's cruel. That's just Tuesday." She had this way of taking anything good and finding the flaw. Any achievement came with a footnote about how I could have done better. Any happiness was selfish if it didn't include her. I learned early that my feelings didn't matter unless they served her needs. "And your dad?" I laughed, but it came out bitter. My dad is a ghost in his own life. I don't think I've ever heard him disagree with her. Not once. Not about anything. He just exists in her shadow, nodding and funding whatever she decides. The calls kept coming throughout the day. I stopped answering my own phone entirely. Marcus fielded a few more before turning off his notifications too. We spent Saturday in our apartment with the curtains drawn, ordering takeout and pretending the world outside had disappeared. Sunday morning, we went to the bank. The manager, A woman named Patricia with kind eyes and absolutely no tolerance for nonsense, listened to my story. I showed her the loan documents, the payment history, the transfers. Showed her the text from my mother, the timeline of manipulation. Can I get off these loans? I asked, knowing the answer but needing to hear it anyway. Patricia shook her head slowly. Not without your parents refinancing in their own names or paying off the balances entirely. When you co-signed, you became equally responsible. Legally, you're as much on the hook as they are. What happens if they stop paying? Both your credits get destroyed. You could be sued for the full amounts. The house could go into foreclosure, the car repossessed, and you'd still owe the difference if the sales don't cover the loan balances. The room felt smaller suddenly. Marcus's hand found mine. But, Patricia continued, you did the right thing by removing the automatic payments. You're not obligated to pay these debts with your own money. They're responsible for making the payments themselves. The fact that they've been using your account suggests they may not have the means to do so, but that's not your emergency to manage. So I just wait? You protect yourself. Document everything. Keep records of all communication. If they make the payments, your credit stays intact. If they don't, you'll need to decide how to respond. But Sarah, you need to understand something, you're not the villain here. Co-signing wasn't a mistake. Trusting your parents wasn't wrong. What they did, manipulating you into funding their lifestyle while making you feel guilty for existing, that's financial abuse. The words hung in the air between us. Financial abuse. I'd never had language for it before. Patricia pulled out some paperwork. I'm going to give you information on financial counseling and legal aid. You may need both before this is over. And I'm going to help you lock down your accounts so no one can access them without your explicit, in-person authorization. We spent 2 hours at that bank. By the time we left, I had new accounts, new passwords, new security measures. My financial life was a fortress now. But fortresses are built to withstand sieges, and I could feel one coming. Monday arrived with a certified letter. My mother had hired a lawyer. The letter, printed on expensive letterhead, informed me that I was in breach of family financial agreements and that my parents were prepared to pursue legal action for emotional distress, financial damage, and reputational harm caused by my sudden and unwarranted withdrawal of support. They were threatening to sue me for stopping payments on debts that were legally theirs. I sat on our couch reading the letter 3 times, each pass revealing new absurdities. Emotional distress. As if I hadn't spent 6 years drowning in anxiety. Reputational harm. As if my mother's reputation wasn't built on lies and manipulation. Marcus read it over my shoulder. This is garbage. Pure intimidation. It's working, I admit it. My hands were shaking again. We need a lawyer. We called 6 attorneys before we found one who specialized in family financial disputes. Her name was Jennifer Reeves, and her office was a small, tidy space above a bookstore downtown. She had gray streaked hair pulled into a practical bun and the direct manner of someone who'd seen everything twice. Your mother doesn't have a case, Jennifer said after reviewing everything. In fact, if she pursues this, she's going to expose herself to scrutiny she definitely doesn't want. Financial abuse of family members is taken seriously, especially when there's documentation. So what do I do? Nothing. Let her lawyer send letters. We'll respond professionally, laying out the facts. Most likely, once her attorney realizes how bad this looks for your parents, they'll advise dropping it. Lawyers don't like taking cases they know will backfire spectacularly. And if they don't drop it? Jennifer smiled, and there was steel in it. Then we counterclaim for financial elder abuse in reverse, adult child abuse through financial manipulation. We seek damages for 6 years of unauthorized use of your funds. We expose every transfer, every guilt trip, every manipulative text message. We make this so ugly in public that your mother will wish she'd never picked up the phone. I felt something unfurl in my chest. Not quite hope, but its cautious cousin. How much will this cost? For now, just a retainer. If it escalates, we'll figure it out. But Sarah, I've been doing this for 20 years. Your mother is counting on you being too scared to fight back. She's betting you'll fold, apologize, resume the payments, and accept the blame for daring to establish a boundary. Bullies rely on fear. Take away the fear, and they're just sad people throwing tantrums. I hired her on the spot. The wedding countdown continued. 3 weeks. 2.5 weeks. Every day brought fresh drama. My mother showed up at my workplace on Tuesday, demanding to speak with me. Security escorted her out after she refused to leave the lobby. She sent flowers to our apartment on Wednesday, black roses with a card that read, "For the death of our relationship." On Thursday, she posted on social media about ungrateful children who abandon their families in times of need, tagging me in every post. I documented everything. Screenshots, recordings, witness statements. Jennifer's advice echoed constantly: let her build the case against herself. Marcus's family rallied in ways that stunned me. His mother called to check in daily. His sister sent care packages. His father, a retired accountant, offered to review all my financial documents for free and help me understand the full scope of the damage. "This is what families do," Marcus's mom told me gently. "They support each other. They don't tear each other down." I cried on the phone with her, ugly crying that came from someplace deep and damaged. I hadn't realized how much I'd been starving for parental kindness until someone offered it freely, with no strings attached. 2 weeks before the wedding, the mortgage payment bounced. I got the notification from the bank, not because I was obligated to pay it, but because my name was on the loan. My parents had failed to make the payment. My credit score dropped 30 points overnight. I called Jennifer. She filed an immediate response with documentation showing the pattern of payments always coming from my account, my recent withdrawal of authorization, and my parents' apparent inability to make payments themselves. "This is good for us," Jennifer said, which felt like the strangest sentence I'd heard all week. "It proves they were dependent on your money, not just supplemented by it. That strengthens our position significantly." The Tesla payment bounced the next day. Another credit hit. My mother's lawyer sent a frantic letter threatening immediate legal action. Jennifer responded with a letter 3 times as long, detailing potential countersuit claims and attaching evidence of financial manipulation. The tone was professional, but the subtext was clear: "Bring it, and we'll bury you." Radio silence for 4 days. Then, 9 days before the wedding, my father called. I hadn't heard his voice in weeks. It was smaller than I remembered, worn thin like old fabric. "Sarah, sweetheart, please. Your mother is making herself sick over this. Can't we just talk? Work something out? I'm sure there's a compromise." "Where's the money, Dad?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "Where did all my money go? I've paid almost $150,000 over 6 years. Where is it?" Silence. "Dad, I'm not trying to punish you. I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to build a life with Marcus, and I can't do that while drowning in your debt. You and Mom make decent money. You own a successful real estate business. Where does it all go?" "Your mother has expectations," he said finally, "about how we should live. The trips, the new furniture, the club memberships. She says we've earned it, that we shouldn't have to sacrifice anymore. And I go along. It's easier." "Easier than what?" "Than standing up to her." The admission came out broken. "I know I failed you, Sarah. I've known for a long time. But I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to be different than I am." I felt something crack inside me, but it wasn't anger. It was grief. Grief for the father I'd never really had, the protector who'd never protected, the parent who'd chosen peace over his own daughter. "You could start by making your own loan payments," I said softly. "You could start by telling Mom no. You could start by being my dad instead of her accomplice. She'll never forgive me." "I know. But I might." He hung up without another word. 1 week before the wedding, my mother's lawyer withdrew from the case. Jennifer called with the news, barely suppressing her satisfaction. He cited irreconcilable differences with the client, but reading between the lines, he figured out your mother was lying to him about the situation. Attorneys don't like being used to intimidate innocent parties. Bad for their reputation. "So it's over?" "The legal threat is. The personal drama? That's up to your mother." The drama arrived Saturday morning, 6 days before the wedding. My bridal shower, hosted by Marcus's sister Emily at her home, was in full swing. 20 women, mimosas and finger sandwiches, games about how well I knew my fiancé. I was laughing at a story Emily was telling when the doorbell rang. Emily went to answer it. Through the archway, I could see her expression change from welcoming to alarmed. My mother pushed past her into the living room. She looked terrible. Hair uncombed, makeup smudged, wearing sweatpants and a stained t-shirt. This wasn't the polished real estate agent I'd known my whole life. This was something broken pretending to be a person. "Sarah," she said, and her voice cracked on my name. Please, we need to talk." The room went silent. 20 women frozen mid-sip, mid-bite, mid-breath. "You need to leave," I said quietly. I'm your mother. You're a stranger who raised me. There's a difference. She flinched like I'd slapped her. How can you say that? After everything I've done for you? I gave you life. I sacrificed my career, my body, my youth for you. You owe me. And there it was. The truth she'd been dancing around for 28 years. I don't owe you my life because you gave me yours, I said, standing up. That's not how parenthood works. You chose to have me. You chose to raise me. Those were your decisions, and they don't create a debt I have to spend my existence repaying. You ungrateful. I'm grateful for the good parts, I interrupted. The childhood memories that weren't laced with criticism. The moments you were actually present instead of performing. But gratitude doesn't mean I have to set myself on fire to keep you warm. My mother's face contorted, cycling through emotions too fast to track. You're going to regret this. You're going to lose everything. I'm losing you, I said. And that's the first thing I've lost that doesn't feel like a tragedy. Emily moved toward my mother, phone in hand. I've called the police. You can leave now, or you can leave in 5 minutes with an escort. Your choice. My mother looked around the room at all those women watching her. Looking for an ally, a sympathetic face, someone who'd tell me I was wrong. She found none. She left without another word. I sank back onto the couch, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Emily's arms came around me, then Marcus's mother's, then others until I was surrounded by warmth and support in the family I'd chosen. You're going to be okay, Emily whispered. You're already okay. You're already free. The wedding day dawned clear and perfect. I woke up in the bridal suite at the venue, surrounded by my bridesmaids. Emily had stayed with me, along with Marcus's cousin Jenna and my best friend from college, Maya. They'd formed a protective barrier around me for the past week, screening calls and managing details and making sure I ate and slept and remembered to breathe. As I sat in the makeup chair, watching my face transform in the mirror, Maya said, "You know she might show up." I know. Security knows what she looks like. They have photos. If she gets within 50 feet of this venue, they'll handle it. I nodded, but my stomach was still tight with anticipation. My mother was a storm, and storms didn't respond to reason or boundaries. They just destroyed what they touched. But when I put on my dress, simple silk, elegant lines, nothing like the elaborate gown my mother had always insisted I'd wear, I felt something shift. This was my day. My choice. My life. Marcus was waiting at the end of the aisle when the music started, and the look on his face when he saw me walking toward him erased every doubt, every fear, every moment of pain. My mother didn't come. Neither did my father. And their absence felt like the first truly honest thing they'd given me in years. The ceremony was perfect. The reception was joy distilled into 5 hours. We danced and ate and laughed until my face hurt. Marcus's father gave a toast that made me cry. Emily sang a song she'd written about new beginnings. My friends from work presented us with a honeymoon fund that had somehow grown to $3,000. For all the trips you couldn't take, Maya said, hugging me tight. For all the adventures waiting for you. At the end of the night, as Marcus and I climbed into the car that would take us to our hotel, I checked my phone for the first time all day. One message. From my father. You look beautiful today. I saw the photos Emily posted. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to be there. I'm sorry for a lot of things. But I want you to know I'm proud of you. You're braver than I ever was. I showed it to Marcus. He squeezed my hand. That's something, he said. It's a start, I agreed. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Costa Rica, paid for by our combined savings and that gift fund. 2 weeks of beaches and rainforests, and forgetting the world existed beyond the two of us. On the third day, lying in a hammock watching sunset paint the sky, my phone buzzed with an email from Jennifer. Your parents' house went into foreclosure proceedings. The Tesla was repossessed. Your credit took additional hits, but they're manageable. More importantly, your mother attempted to open a credit card in your name last week. The fraud alert we set up blocked it. I filed identity theft reports with all 3 bureaus and local law enforcement. I read the email twice. Marcus read it over my shoulder. She tried to steal your identity, he said, and there was no question in it. Desperation makes people do terrible things, I replied. Or maybe she was always capable of this and I just couldn't see it. What do you want to do? I thought about that question for a long time. Watch the sun sink lower, painting everything gold and red and purple. Listen to the waves and the birds and Marcus's steady breathing beside me. I want to let it go, I said finally. Not forgive, that's not the same thing. But I want to stop letting her have space in my head. She's lost her power over me. The bills, the guilt, the obligation, it's all gone. She's just a woman now who made bad choices and has to live with the consequences. And your dad? I don't know yet. Maybe someday we'll have coffee and talk. Maybe he'll find his spine and leave her. Maybe he won't. But that's his journey, not mine. We stayed in that hammock until the stars came out, until the air turned cool and the resort lights flickered on behind us. And for the first time in 6 years, I felt light. Like something that had been pressing down on my chest had finally lifted. We came home to a new normal. I'd prepared for fallout, legal battles, family confrontations, financial ruin. What I got instead was silence. My mother disappeared from social media. My father's calls stopped. The family network that had mobilized to shame me went quiet. Jennifer explained it during our follow-up meeting: foreclosure is public record. So is repossession. Your mother's real estate clients are seeing the contradiction. She sells houses but lost her own. Her reputation, the thing she valued most, is crumbling. And it's not because of you. It's because the house of cards she built finally collapsed under its own weight. Do I feel bad about that? I asked. Do you? I thought about it honestly. A little. Not for her suffering, but for the waste of it all. She could have just been my mom. She could have loved me without conditions. But that wasn't enough for her. She needed control, drama, power. And now she has none of it. That's grief, Jennifer said gently. Not for who she is, but for who she could have been. Over the next few months, I rebuilt. My credit slowly recovered as the negative marks aged and I established new positive payment history. Marcus and I started saving for a house, our house, with a mortgage in both our names that we'd actually pay ourselves. I got a promotion at work. Started therapy to untangle 28 years of manipulation. And I learned something crucial: freedom isn't dramatic. It's not a single moment of triumph. It's the quiet accumulation of days where you make your own choices, pay your own bills, and don't wake up with dread pooling in your stomach. 6 months after the wedding, Emily called with news. Your mom listed her business for sale, she said. I saw it on the commercial real estate site. She's liquidating everything. Part of me wanted to feel victorious. She'd lost the empire she'd built on lies and debt and my money. But mostly I just felt tired. Thanks for telling me, I said. Are you okay? Yeah. I really am. And I was. 9 months after the wedding, my father called from a number I didn't recognize. I left, he said without preamble. I moved out last week. I'm staying with my brother in Nevada. I wanted you to know. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. Not for the money, though I'm sorry about that too, but for not being your dad. For letting her hurt you. For being a coward. I sat down on our couch, Marcus looking up from his book with concern. What changed? I asked. She tried to forge my signature on a loan application, he said. Using our old house as collateral, except we don't own it anymore. The bank caught it, threatened prosecution. And I was done. Done making excuses. Done disappearing into her shadow. Done watching her burn down everyone who loved her. Are you getting divorced? Probably. Eventually. Right now I'm just trying to figure out who I am without her telling me. We talked for 20 minutes. It wasn't healing would take years, if it happened at all. But it was honest, and that was new territory for us. Can we talk again sometime? He asked. Maybe, I said. I'm not making promises. But I'm not saying no either. That's more than I deserve. Probably, I agreed. But we all start somewhere. A year after the wedding, Marcus and I closed on our house. It was small, needed work, and was absolutely perfect. We painted walls and planted gardens and filled it with furniture we actually chose. No debt except the mortgage, our mortgage, manageable, planned for, ours. The housewarming party was loud and chaotic and full of the family we built, Marcus's relatives, our friends, co-workers, neighbors. People who showed up because they wanted to, not because they were obligated to. Emily found me in the kitchen, washing dishes while music thumped in the living room. You know you don't have to clean during your own party, she said, grabbing a towel to dry. I like it, I admitted. Having a home to clean. Having people to feed. Choosing this mess instead of having chaos inflicted on me. You're happy? It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. I am. Not every day. Some days I still flinch when the phone rings or check my bank account 3 times before noon. But yeah, I'm happy. Your mom reached out to me last week, Emily said carefully. Asked if I'd talk to you. She wants to reconcile. My hand stilled in the soapy water. What did you tell her? That it wasn't my conversation to have? That if she wanted to talk to you, she needed to contact you directly. Which we both know she won't do because it requires vulnerability and actual accountability. Thank you for telling me. Are you going to reach out? I pulled the plug on the sink, watched the water spiral down the drain. No. Maybe someday, if she does the work, if she gets help, if she genuinely changes. But I'm not holding my breath. And I'm not setting myself on fire to give her warmth anymore. Good, Emily said, and hugged me sideways. Because you finally learned to save your fire for yourself. The party lasted until midnight. When everyone had gone home and Marcus and I were sitting on our back porch in the cool night air, he asked, "Do you ever regret it? How it all went down?" Regret standing up for myself? No. Regret that it had to happen that way? Sometimes. I wish my mother had been different. I wish my father had been braver. I wish I'd recognized the manipulation sooner. But I can't build a life on wishes. What can you build it on? I looked at our house, at the lights glowing in the windows, at the garden we planted together that was just starting to bloom. This. Us. Choices made with clear eyes and open hearts. That's enough. Marcus pulled me close. More than enough. 2 years after the wedding rehearsal dinner where everything changed, I'm writing this on our anniversary. Marcus is making breakfast, coffee smell drifting through our home, and I'm thinking about the woman I was that night. She was scared and trapped and drowning, though she didn't know it yet. She'd spent 28 years learning to shrink herself, to put everyone else first, to accept crumbs of affection as love. She thought being a good daughter meant sacrificing herself on the altar of her mother's needs. She was wrong about so many things. But she was also braver than she knew. Because when the moment came, when the choice was between continued suffering and terrifying freedom, she chose herself. She said perfect. She meant no more. And that single moment of courage changed everything. I still don't talk to my mother. She sends cards occasionally, my birthday, holidays, with generic messages about love and family. I file them away unread. Maybe someday I'll have the emotional bandwidth to engage. Maybe I won't. Either way, it's my choice. My father and I talk once a month. Brief conversations about nothing important, weather, books, whether he's eating enough vegetables. It's not a relationship, not really. More like two strangers slowly learning each other's language. But it's honest, and that matters. My credit score recovered. It's actually higher now than before everything imploded. Turns out, when you only pay your own bills and live within your means, financial stability is achievable. Who knew? The wedding we paid for ourselves was perfect. The marriage we're building is even better. Some days are hard. Some days I catch myself falling into old patterns, people-pleasing, over-explaining, apologizing for taking up space. Marcus calls me on it gently, reminds me that my needs matter, that love shouldn't hurt. And I'm learning. Learning that boundaries aren't betrayal. That saying no doesn't make me selfish. That I can be someone's daughter without being their emotional support animal or financial resource. I'm learning that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's boundaries. Clear, consistent, unflinching boundaries that say, this far and no further. You cannot have more of me than I'm willing to give. And I don't have to justify that to anyone. Sometimes people ask if I'm angry. If I resent the years lost, the money gone, the relationship that crumbled under its own toxicity. The answer is complicated. I'm angry at the system that made it possible, the ease of financial manipulation, the family loyalty trap, the cultural expectation that children owe their parents unconditional support. I'm sad for what could have been if my mother had chosen differently. I'm frustrated that my father waited so long to find his spine. But I'm not stuck in that anger. It doesn't define me anymore. Instead, I'm grateful. Which sounds strange, maybe even twisted. But that rehearsal dinner, as humiliating and painful as it was, gave me permission to save myself. My mother's cruelty became the catalyst for my freedom. Her mask slipped in front of everyone who mattered, and I couldn't unsee what was underneath. So I'm grateful for the breaking point. For Marcus standing beside me. For Jennifer fighting for me. For Emily and Maya and Marcus's family wrapping me in unconditional support. For learning that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up, who stays, who loves you at your messiest. This morning, Marcus brought me coffee in bed and kissed my forehead and said, "Happy anniversary. I'm proud of you." For what? For surviving? For thriving? For being the bravest person I know. I'm not sure about brave. Brave feels too big, too heroic. I'm just someone who got tired of drowning and finally learned to swim. But maybe that's what bravery is. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Not grand gestures, but the daily choice to protect yourself, value yourself, be yourself. 2 years ago, my mother told a room full of people that I'd picked the wrong man. What she meant was that I'd picked someone who saw my worth, who wouldn't enable her control, who stood between me and her manipulation. She was right to be afraid of Marcus. Because he gave me something she never could: unconditional love. The kind that doesn't come with strings or expectations or debt. The kind that makes you stronger instead of smaller. So yeah, I picked the right man. And I picked myself. And I picked freedom over obligation, truth over performance, health over history. I didn't argue with my mother's text that night. I just stopped paying. Stopped paying her bills, her debts, her emotional invoices. Stopped paying with my money, my energy, my peace of mind. And it turns out, when you stop paying for someone else's circus, you have enough resources to build your own beautiful life. The sun is streaming through our kitchen windows. Marcus is singing off-key to the radio. Our dog, adopted 6 months ago, named after Emily's suggestion, is begging for bacon. This is my life now. Chosen, built, earned. But there's one more piece of this story that needs telling. One more moment that sealed everything shut. It happened 3 months ago, a year and 9 months after the wedding. I was at the grocery store, pushing my cart through the produce section, debating between organic and conventional strawberries like that was the biggest problem in my life. Which, honestly, it was. And that felt like a miracle. Then I heard her voice. "Sarah." I turned. My mother stood 5 feet away, and I barely recognized her. She'd lost weight, her clothes hanging loose. Her hair, always meticulously styled, was pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup. Dark circles under her eyes. She looked like someone who'd been surviving instead of living. "I'm not here to cause problems," she said quickly, hands raised like I might bolt. I saw you and I thought maybe this was a sign. That I should try." People were staring. An elderly woman with a walker watched us with undisguised interest. A stock boy pretended to arrange apples while clearly eavesdropping. "Try what?" I asked. "To say I'm sorry." The words came out rough, unpracticed. "To tell you that you were right. About everything. The money, the control, the guilt. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I couldn't stand not being the center of your world." I waited. There had to be more. An ask, a manipulation, a twist. "That's it," she said, reading my expression. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I know I don't deserve that. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I finally see it. What I did. Who I was. And I'm trying to be different, even though it's probably too late." "Are you in therapy?" I asked. She nodded. "Court ordered, actually. After the identity theft attempt. I had to do counseling as part of my probation. But it's helping. I'm starting to understand things I spent 53 years refusing to see." 53. My mother was 53 years old, and she was just now learning that other people had value independent of what they could provide her. The tragedy of that hit me sideways. "I'm glad you're getting help," I said carefully. "I mean that genuinely. But I can't be part of your healing journey. Not right now. Maybe not ever." "I know." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. "I just wanted you to know that when I look back at that rehearsal dinner, at everything that happened after, I don't blame you. Not anymore. You saved yourself because I wouldn't save you. And that's on me." She turned to leave, then paused. "You look happy. That's all I ever should have wanted for you. I'm sorry it took losing you for me to figure that out." Then she was gone, disappearing into the cereal aisle, and I stood there holding a bag of strawberries and feeling things I couldn't quite name. I called my therapist from the car. Dr. Morrison listened while I recounted the whole interaction, my voice shaking. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Confused. Sad. A little angry that it took this long. A little hopeful that maybe she's actually changing. Mostly just tired." "That's valid. All of it. You can acknowledge her growth while still protecting your boundaries. Her journey doesn't require your participation." She seemed genuine. Maybe she was. People can be genuinely sorry and still not be safe for you to have in your life. Apologies are important, but they're not magical. They don't erase harm or rebuild trust instantly. I drove home and told Marcus everything. He held me while I cried, not from pain exactly, but from the complicated grief of watching someone finally become who they should have been all along, too late to matter. That night, I wrote my mother a letter. Not to send, but to process. Dr. Morrison had suggested letter writing as a tool for closure, whether or not the letter ever reached its recipient. Dear Mom, I wrote. I saw you today. I heard you apologize. Part of me wanted to believe you've changed. Part of me wanted to hug you and tell you it's okay, we can start over. But the rest of me, the part that survived you, knows that forgiveness without boundaries is just another form of self-destruction. I hope you're actually doing the work. I hope therapy is helping you understand the damage you caused, not just to me, but to Dad, to yourself, to everyone who tried to love you despite your best efforts to make it impossible. I hope you're learning that love is in control, that boundaries aren't rejection, that people aren't possessions. But I can't be the person who walks beside you through that journey. I've spent 2 years learning to breathe without your weight on my chest. I've built a life that doesn't include you, and it's a good life. A peaceful life. A life where I don't wake up afraid of what you'll take from me next. Maybe someday we'll have coffee and talk about safe things, weather, books, the news. Maybe you'll meet your grandchildren someday, if I decide to have children. Maybe. But right now, maybe is all I have to offer, and I'm not sorry about that. You gave me life, but I gave myself permission to live it. I hope you find that same permission for yourself. I never sent the letter. But writing it helped something settle inside me. A month after the grocery store encounter, my father called with unexpected news. I signed the divorce papers, he said. It's final in 60 days. I'm moving to Nevada permanently. Got a job managing a hardware store. It's quiet work. Simple. I like it. How are you doing with everything? I asked. Some days are good. Some days I wake up and can't believe I wasted 30 years. But mostly I'm just trying to figure out who I am now. I started going to group therapy. Other men who left controlling relationships. It helps to know I'm not alone in being the person who stayed too long. We talked about his new apartment, his coworkers, his routines. Small talk that felt less small with every conversation. Can I ask you something? He said eventually. Sure. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? Not now, I know it's too soon. But someday? I thought about that question for a long moment. I don't know, Dad. Forgiveness feels like this big thing everyone expects you to grant, like it's owed. But I'm learning that I don't owe anyone forgiveness, even you. What I can offer is understanding. I understand why you made the choices you did. I understand fear and compliance and learned helplessness. That doesn't make it okay, but it makes it human. That's fair, he said quietly. More than fair. What I need from you isn't forgiveness. It's consistency. Keep showing up. Keep doing the work. Keep being honest. And maybe over time, understanding turns into something else. But I can't promise that. I'll take understanding, he said. It's more than I gave you. We've kept talking. Once a month, sometimes twice. He sends me pictures of Nevada sunsets and funny signs he sees around town. I send him photos of our house renovations and the dog doing silly things. It's not a father-daughter relationship, not really. But it's something. And something is more than nothing. The extended family drama eventually fizzled too. Aunt Linda, who'd left me that scathing voicemail, reached out 6 months after the wedding with a careful apology. Your mother told us you'd abandoned them over money, she admitted. That you were being selfish and cruel. She's very convincing when she wants to be. But then I saw the foreclosure notice, and the repossession, and I started doing math. All those years you were supposedly doing so well, you were actually drowning. I should have asked questions. I should have checked on you. I'm sorry. She's good at crafting narratives, I said. You weren't wrong to believe your sister. You were just missing information. Other family members followed. Not all of them. Some still think I'm the villain in this story. But enough reached out that I realized something important. My mother had been controlling them too, in different ways. Her version of events was the only version they'd heard, and when cracks appeared in that story, they'd started questioning everything. Last month, Emily hosted Thanksgiving at her place. Marcus's whole family came. My father drove in from Nevada. Even Aunt Linda showed up with her famous sweet potato casserole and a tentative smile. It was strange, sitting at that table, seeing who remained and who was absent. My mother's chair was empty, but it didn't feel like a void anymore. Just a space where someone used to be. My father was quiet through most of dinner, but when dessert came out, he cleared his throat. "I want to say something," he announced, and the table quieted. 2 years ago, I stood by while someone I should have protected got hurt. I let fear make me a coward, and I let my daughter pay the price. I can't undo that. But I can stand here now and say, "Sarah, I'm proud of you. Not just for surviving, but for thriving. For building this beautiful family. For showing me what courage actually looks like." His voice cracked on the last words. I got up and hugged him, and it was awkward and imperfect and real. "Thank you," I whispered. "For trying." "I'll keep trying," he promised. "For as long as you'll let me." Now, on this anniversary morning, I think about all the versions of myself I've been. The scared girl who thought love meant sacrifice. The drowning woman who couldn't see the hands pulling her under. The bride who chose herself. The wife learning to receive love without suspicion. The person I'm still becoming? My mother stood up at my rehearsal dinner and tried to destroy me. Instead, she freed me. And I've never looked back, but I have looked forward, and the view is beautiful.
Story 3.
At my son's funeral, my mother whispered, "Maybe this is God's way of punishing you for not being a better daughter." My siblings stood silent. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just walked out. 3 months later, I got a call from my sister. "Mom's in the hospital. She's asking for you. She says she's dying and needs to see you one last time." I remembered what she said over my child's grave, stared at my phone, and replied, "Tell her I'll think about it." Then I hung up. You need to understand something before I explain what happened next. I'm not a cruel person. I wasn't raised to be vindictive or cold. But standing over your 5-year-old son's casket while your mother uses his death as a weapon against you changes something fundamental in your chest. It's like a door slamming shut that you didn't even know existed, and suddenly you're on the other side of it, looking back at who you used to be through thick glass. The funeral was on a Tuesday. October 23rd. The kind of autumn day that should feel peaceful, with golden light filtering through red leaves, but instead felt like the world was mocking me. How dare it be beautiful when my son was being lowered into the ground? Daniel had been sick for 11 months. Leukemia. The kind that starts with bruises that don't heal and ends with machines beeping in a hospital room that smells like antiseptic and something else, something sweeter and worse that I can never quite name. We'd done everything. Chemotherapy that made him so sick he couldn't lift his head. Radiation. Clinical trials. I'd sold my car, my jewelry, everything I owned that could be converted into treatment money. My mother visited once. Once, in 11 months. She came on a Thursday afternoon in July, swept into the pediatric oncology ward wearing designer sunglasses and carrying a purse that probably cost more than my rent. She stayed 17 minutes. I know because I watched the clock on the wall, counting each second, wondering when she'd actually ask Daniel how he was feeling instead of talking about her book club and her remodeled kitchen. When she left, she kissed my forehead and said, "You look tired, sweetie. Maybe if you took better care of yourself, you'd have more energy for him." Daniel asked me after she left why Grandma didn't stay to play cards like Aunt Shelley did. I told him Grandma was busy. He was 5. He accepted it because 5-year-olds still believe adults have good reasons for the things they do. But I'm getting ahead of myself. At the funeral, there were maybe 40 people. Daniel's father wasn't there. He'd left when Daniel was 2, said he wasn't ready for the responsibility, and I'd been raising our son alone ever since. Some people from my work came. A few mothers from Daniel's preschool, the one he'd attended before he got too sick. My sister Shelley and her husband. My brother Marcus with his wife and 2 kids. My mother arrived late, naturally, making an entrance in black Chanel with pearls. She hugged me, and I smelled her perfume, the same Shalimar she'd worn my entire life, and I felt nothing. Not comfort, not anger, nothing. I was a shell. Hollow. The service was simple because simple was all I could afford. A small casket, white with silver handles. Daniel had wanted to be a firefighter when he grew up. The funeral director had helped me drape a tiny firefighter's helmet on top of the casket. It was the only detail that felt like it meant anything. The pastor spoke about how heaven gains angels. People cried. I didn't. I couldn't. My tears had dried up somewhere around month 9 of treatment, when I realized we were losing, when I had to explain to my baby boy that sometimes doctors can't fix everything and his body was too tired to keep fighting. After the service, we stood in the cemetery. Wind cut through my thin black dress. I hadn't eaten in 2 days and felt lightheaded, unsteady, like I might float away. My mother approached me as they lowered the casket. She put her hand on my shoulder, and I felt her lean close to my ear. Her breath was warm against my skin, and I remember thinking absurdly that she must have had coffee before coming because I could smell it. "Maybe this is God's way of punishing you for not being a better daughter," she whispered. I froze. Turned my head slowly to look at her. She was already pulling back, adjusting her sunglasses, her face composed in an expression of practiced grief. Shelley stood 3 feet away, close enough to have heard. Marcus was right beside her. Neither of them looked at me. They'd heard. They'd definitely heard. I waited for someone to say something. To gasp, to object, to tell her that was a monstrous thing to say. Shelley studied her shoes. Marcus coughed and looked at the trees. My mother smoothed her skirt and walked back toward the cars. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I walked away from the grave, away from the people, away from my son being buried in the ground, and I got into my car and drove home. I didn't speak to anyone. Didn't say goodbye. Just left. At home, I sat in Daniel's room for hours. His stuffed animals lined up on his bed. His dinosaur posters on the walls. His red firefighter boots by the door, waiting for feet that would never wear them again. I thought about my mother's words. Rolled them around in my mind like stones, testing their weight. Not being a better daughter. As if I deserved this. As if losing my child was punishment for some failure on my part. What had I done that was so terrible? I'd chosen to keep Daniel when his father wanted me to get an abortion. I'd moved out at 19 because my mother made it clear that an unwed pregnant daughter was an embarrassment. I'd worked 3 jobs to support my son, attended community college part-time, tried to build a life. I'd called her on holidays. Sent cards. Invited her to Daniel's birthday parties, which she rarely attended because she had other commitments. I hadn't been a perfect daughter, sure. But I'd loved my son with every atom of my being, and he died anyway, and my mother used his grave as a stage to knife me one more time. Something crystallized in my chest that night. Something cold and clear and sharp. 3 months passed. I went back to work at the insurance office where I processed claims. I moved through days like a ghost, functional but absent. I sold Daniel's things because I couldn't bear to look at them. Donated his clothes, his toys, his books. Kept only a few photographs and the firefighter helmet from his casket. I didn't speak to my mother. Didn't call her. Didn't respond to her messages, of which there were exactly 3, one asking if I'd received the flowers she sent. I hadn't noticed any flowers, one reminding me about Thanksgiving, I didn't go, and one wishing me a Merry Christmas. It was March, so apparently she'd sent it late or to the wrong number initially. Shelley called me sometimes. Asked how I was doing. We had careful conversations where neither of us mentioned the funeral. She'd tell me about her kids, her job at the bank, her husband's promotion. I'd make appropriate sounds. We never talked about what we'd both heard at the cemetery. Then, 3 months and 4 days after Daniel's funeral, Shelley called on a Wednesday evening. I was eating dinner, if you could call it that, crackers and cheese, standing at my kitchen counter because sitting at the table alone felt too depressing. "Mom's in the hospital," Shelley said, her voice tight. "She collapsed this morning. They're saying it might be her heart. She's stable now, but she's asking for you. She keeps saying she's dying and needs to see you one last time." I chewed my cracker slowly. Swallowed. Took a sip of water. "She says it's urgent," Shelley pressed. "She needs to make peace with you before it's too late." I thought about my son's grave. About my mother's whisper. About Shelley's silence. "Tell her I'll think about it," I said. "What?" Shelley's voice pitched higher. "She's in the hospital. She might actually die. Don't you think?" "I'll think about it," I repeated, and hung up. I finished my crackers. Washed my plate. Sat on my couch and stared at the wall. My phone rang again. Marcus this time. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message calling me selfish and saying family was supposed to forgive each other, and how could I hold a grudge when our mother was seriously ill? I deleted it without finishing. The thing about grief is that it sharpens your edges. Before Daniel died, I might have rushed to the hospital. I might have swallowed my hurt and played the dutiful daughter because that's what good people do, right? They turn the other cheek. They forgive. But I wasn't that person anymore. That person had been buried with a 5-year-old boy who'd never gotten to ride in a real fire truck. 2 days passed. Shelley called 6 more times. Marcus called 4. My mother's sister, Aunt Linda, called and left a rambling message about family bonds and Christian duty and how my mother had always loved me even if she had trouble showing it. I didn't return any of the calls. On Friday, I got a text from Shelley. She's asking for you constantly. Please. Whatever she said, whatever happened, she's our mother. I stared at that message for a long time. Whatever she said. As if Shelley didn't remember exactly what had been said, exactly where, exactly when. I typed back, I'll visit when I'm ready. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. Saturday morning, I woke up early. Made coffee. Sat in my living room and thought about something Daniel's oncologist had told me once. We'd been discussing whether to try another round of chemotherapy even though it was clear his body was failing, and Dr. Morrison had said, sometimes the kindest thing we can do is acknowledge that we're out of options. I'd hated him for saying it then. But I understood it now. I was out of options with my mother. There was no combination of words or actions that would transform our relationship into something healthy. There was no grand gesture that would make her see me, truly see me, as someone worthy of unconditional love. That ship had sailed a long time ago. Maybe when I'd gotten pregnant at 18. Maybe before that. Maybe I'd never been the daughter she wanted, and nothing I did would ever change it. So what was the point of rushing to her hospital bed? I turned my phone back on. 17 missed calls. 23 text messages. The most recent was from Marcus, sent at 2 in the morning. You're unbelievable. She's crying for you and you can't even be bothered to show up. What kind of person are you? I felt that question settle into my bones. What kind of person was I? The kind who'd watched her child die. The kind who'd been told at her child's funeral that his death was punishment. The kind who'd learned that blood relation doesn't guarantee loyalty or kindness. I called Shelley. She answered on the first ring. Thank goodness, she breathed. When are you coming? I need you to answer a question first, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, calm, almost detached. At Daniel's funeral. Did you hear what Mom said to me? Silence. Then, I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. By the grave. She whispered something to me. You were standing right there. Did you hear it? More silence, longer this time. I waited. Look, she was upset, Shelley finally said. Everyone says things they don't mean when they're emotional, so you did hear it. She didn't mean it the way it sounded. What did it sound like to you, Shelley? Tell me. What did you hear? I don't want to do this right now. Mom's sick. What did you hear? I heard Shelley exhale shakily. She said something about you not being a better daughter. But she was grieving too, okay? Daniel was her grandson. She visited him once. Once in 11 months. Don't talk to me about her grief. That's not fair. You know what's not fair? Having your mother tell you that your child's death is punishment. You know what else is not fair? Having your siblings hear it and say nothing. Not then. Not in the 3 months since. Nothing. What were we supposed to do? Shelley's voice cracked. Get into a fight at a funeral? Make things worse? You were supposed to defend me, I said quietly. You were supposed to tell her that was a horrible thing to say. You were supposed to stand by me. It's complicated. No. It's actually very simple. She said something unforgivable, and you all let her get away with it because standing up to her is harder than pretending it didn't happen. So you're just going to let her die without seeing her? Is that your plan? I thought about that. Pictured my mother in a hospital bed, probably holding court, probably complaining about the food and the nurses and everything else. Probably painting herself as the victim of a cruel, ungrateful daughter who couldn't be bothered to visit her dying mother. I'll come, I said. Oh, but not yet. I'll come when I'm ready. And Shelley? If you tell Mom I'm coming, if you give her hope or comfort about this, I won't show up at all. Do you understand? That's manipulative. Do you understand? Yes, she whispered. I hung up. The weekend passed. Then Monday. Tuesday. I went to work, came home, ate simple meals, slept fitfully. My phone continued to ring. I didn't answer. On Wednesday, a full week after Shelley's first call, I drove to the hospital. It was a 20-minute drive from my apartment. I'd made the trip hundreds of times when Daniel was sick, a different hospital, but they all smell the same, that mix of industrial cleaner and cafeteria food and human fear. I parked in the visitor lot. Sat in my car for 10 minutes, hands on the steering wheel. What was I doing here? Paying respects? Seeking closure? Delivering some final blow? I didn't know. But I knew I needed to see her one more time. Inside, I checked in at the front desk, got a visitor badge, took the elevator to the 4th floor. Cardiac unit. The nurse at the station gave me the room number without looking up. Room 412. The door was half open. I stood in the hallway, listening. I could hear my mother's voice, strong and clear, definitely not dying. I just don't understand it, she was saying. I raised her better than this. After everything I've done for her, all the sacrifices I made, and she can't even visit me in the hospital. The ingratitude is unbelievable. Mom, maybe you should rest, Marcus's voice. I'm just saying, when I needed her most, where was she? I've always been there for her, always, and this is how she repays me. I almost laughed. The audacity was breathtaking. I pushed the door open wider and walked in. The room was crowded. My mother in the bed, looking perfectly healthy if a bit pale, propped up on pillows. Marcus in a chair by the window. Shelley on the other side of the bed, holding our mother's hand. Aunt Linda near the door, and 2 women I vaguely recognized as my mother's friends from church. Everyone turned to look at me. Well, my mother said, her eyes widening. Look who finally decided to show up. I closed the door behind me. Hi, Mom, I said. I hear you're dying. Don't be dramatic, sweetheart. I'm very ill. My heart. Your heart. I moved closer to the bed. What's the diagnosis, exactly? She blinked, thrown by my tone. Arrhythmia? The doctors say it's serious. I could have another episode any time. I needed to see you before what? Before you pass away? I tilted my head. That's interesting, because I spoke to your nurse on my way in. Your prognosis is good. You'll need medication and lifestyle changes, but you're expected to make a full recovery. My mother's mouth thinned. The nurse doesn't know everything. She knows your chart. She knows your test results. You're not dying, Mom. You had a scare, and now you're milking it for attention. How dare you? No. My voice came out harder than I'd intended. You don't get to how dare me. Not this time. Shelley stood up. Maybe we should give you two some privacy. Sit down, I said, not looking at her. All of you. Stay exactly where you are. Something in my voice must have convinced them because nobody moved. I turned back to my mother. You told me, at Daniel's funeral, that his death was punishment. Do you remember that? The room went very quiet. I never said that, my mother said quickly. You're misremembering. I'm not. You whispered it to me while they lowered my son into the ground. You said, maybe this is God's way of punishing you for not being a better daughter. Those were your exact words. I would never. Shelley heard you. Marcus heard you. Didn't you? I looked at my siblings. Tell her. Tell her what you heard. Shelley's face flushed. Marcus studied the floor. See, I said softly. They remember. They just didn't think it mattered enough to speak up. You're twisting things, my mother said, her voice rising. I was grief-stricken. If I said something that came out wrong, it didn't come out wrong. You meant every word. And you know what? I've spent 3 months trying to figure out what I did that was so terrible. What made you hate me so much that you'd say something like that? I don't hate you. Yes, you do. I was surprised by how calm I felt. You've resented me since I got pregnant with Daniel. Maybe before that. I was never the daughter you wanted. I wasn't polished enough, obedient enough, impressive enough to show off to your friends. And when I chose to keep my baby instead of getting an abortion like you suggested, that was the final straw, wasn't it? That's not true. You visited Daniel once during his illness. Once. Shelley came 47 times. Marcus came at least 20. Aunt Linda came a dozen times. But you, his grandmother, couldn't be bothered to spend time with him while he was dying. Tears were running down my face now, but I didn't bother wiping them away. And then, when he was gone, when I was standing beside his grave trying to figure out how to keep breathing, you took that opportunity to twist the knife one more time. Because that's who you are. That's who you've always been. Get out, my mother said, her voice shaking with rage. Get out of my room right now. I'm not finished. I took a step closer. You called me here, remember? You said you needed to see me before you died. So here I am. And I want you to know something. I leaned over the bed rail, close enough to see the veins in her temples, the flecks of mascara under her eyes. I will never forgive you, I said quietly. Not for what you said at the funeral. Not for how you treated Daniel. Not for any of it. And when you actually do die someday, whenever that is, I won't be at your funeral. I won't cry. I won't pretend to be sad. I'll just feel relieved that I never have to see you again." My mother's face had gone white. "You ungrateful. And one more thing." I straightened up. "You didn't make me come here because you were dying. You made me come here because you wanted an audience to hear about how terrible I am. You wanted everyone to see that I'm the bad daughter who couldn't even visit her sick mother. But you miscalculated." I turned to look at Marcus, at Shelley, at Aunt Linda, at the church friends. "All of you heard what I just told her. About the funeral. About what she said. So when she tries to rewrite history and make herself the victim, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember that she called me here under false pretenses, and you'll know exactly why I walked away." "You can't do this," my mother sputtered. "You can't just." "I can. And I am." I headed for the door, then paused and looked back. "Get well soon, Mom. Live a long life. Just live it without me in it." I walked out of the room and didn't look back. Behind me, I heard my mother start to cry, loud, dramatic sobs. I heard Shelley say my name. I heard Aunt Linda making shocked noises. I kept walking. Out of the cardiac unit, down the elevator, through the lobby, into the parking lot. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get my keys into the ignition. I sat in my car and let myself feel it all, the rage, the grief, the bitter satisfaction of finally saying everything I'd been holding back. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus: "I hope you're proud of yourself." I deleted it. Another text, from Shelley: "That was cruel. She's sick and you just attacked her." I blocked her number. I drove home in silence. Didn't turn on the radio. Just listened to the sound of my breathing, the hum of the engine, the ordinary noises of traffic. At home, I made tea. Sat on my couch. Waited to feel guilty. The guilt didn't come. What came instead was something lighter. A loosening in my chest, like I'd been holding my breath for months and could finally exhale. I thought about Daniel. About how, in his last weeks, he'd been so brave. He told me once that he wasn't scared of dying because he'd gotten to be my son, and that was enough. He'd said it matter-of-factly, like it was the simplest truth in the world. And I thought about how I'd spent so much of my life trying to earn my mother's love, trying to be good enough, trying to make up for the sin of not being who she wanted. What a waste. I picked up my phone and called Dr. Morrison, Daniel's oncologist. I'd kept his card, not sure why. When he answered, I asked if the hospital still needed volunteers in the pediatric oncology unit. "Always," he said. "Why?" "I'd like to help," I said. "If there's anything I can do." We talked for 20 minutes. He explained the process, the training, the time commitment. When I hung up, I had an appointment scheduled for the following week. The next few days were strange. Quiet. My phone didn't ring much anymore. Marcus sent one final text calling me heartless and saying I was dead to him. Shelley sent a long email about family and forgiveness and how I'd regret this someday. I didn't regret it. I started volunteering at the hospital 3 weeks later. It was hard at first, being back in those rooms that smelled like my memories of Daniel. But it was also healing in a way I hadn't expected. I sat with kids who were scared. Read to them. Played games. Held their hands during procedures when their parents needed a break. I didn't try to replace what I'd lost. You can't replace a child. But I could honor Daniel's memory by being present for other children who were fighting the same fight he'd fought. A month after my hospital confrontation with my mother, I got a call from Aunt Linda. "I need to tell you something," she said without preamble. "Your mother has been bad-mouthing you to everyone. Telling people you abandoned her when she was dying, that you're vindictive and cruel. She's playing the victim." "I know she is," I said. "Well, I want you to know that I don't believe her. I was there. I heard what you said about the funeral, and I believe you. Your mother has always been." She paused, searching for words. "She's always been complicated. But what she did to you was wrong." "Thank you," I said quietly. "Not everyone believes her story," Aunt Linda continued. "Some of us have been paying attention. Some of us remember how she treated you over the years. You're not alone in seeing her clearly." We talked for an hour. She told me about my mother's own childhood, about her relationship with her parents, about patterns that had been repeating for generations. It didn't excuse anything, but it provided context. "Breaking the cycle is hard," Aunt Linda said. "But it's necessary. You did the right thing." I wasn't sure I believed that. I still don't know if I did the right thing. But I know I did the only thing I could do and still live with myself. 6 months after that hospital visit, I got a letter in the mail. My mother's handwriting on the envelope. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. Inside was a single page. "You were right," it said. "About everything. I was a terrible mother to you, and a worse grandmother to Daniel. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm writing because my therapist says I need to acknowledge what I did without making excuses. So here it is, I was wrong. What I said at the funeral was unforgivable. How I treated you was unforgivable. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. But I want you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm sorry." I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a box with Daniel's things, the few items I'd kept. The firefighter helmet. Some photographs. His favorite stuffed dinosaur. I didn't respond to the letter. Didn't call. Didn't write back. Maybe that makes me cruel. Maybe it makes me unforgiving. I've made peace with not knowing. What I do know is this: I volunteer at the hospital twice a week. I read to scared kids. I hold their hands. I tell them stories about a brave little boy who wanted to be a firefighter. I have coffee sometimes with parents who are going through what I went through. I listen to them. I don't tell them it will be okay, because sometimes it won't be. But I tell them they're not alone. I moved to a new apartment, one with big windows and good light. I adopted a cat, a scruffy orange tabby who sleeps on my pillow and purrs so loudly it sounds like a motor. I'm learning to paint. Terribly, but that's not the point. The point is that I'm doing something that's mine, something that has nothing to do with my mother or my family or my past. I still think about Daniel every day. Every single day. Some days the grief is so heavy I can barely move. But other days, I remember his laugh, his questions, his absolute certainty that dragons were probably real and just very good at hiding. And I'm building a life that honors his memory. Not by being perfect or by earning anyone's approval. But by being brave enough to walk away from people who hurt me, even when they're family. Especially when they're family. Last week, I got another letter from my mother. I haven't opened it yet. It's sitting on my kitchen counter, and I look at it sometimes when I'm making coffee in the morning. Maybe I'll open it. Maybe I won't. The difference now is that it's my choice. She doesn't get to demand my presence, my forgiveness, my energy. I get to decide what I'm willing to give and what I need to keep for myself. And if that makes me a bad daughter, then I'm a bad daughter. But I'm a daughter who survived. Who's still standing? Who's learning to live with loss without letting it consume everything? That's enough. It has to be enough. Because at the end of the day, I only have one life. And I'm not spending it trying to earn love from someone who's proven, again and again, that she can't give it. I'm spending it on things that matter. Kids who need someone to care. A cat who needs a home. Paint on canvas. Coffee on Sunday mornings. Memories of a boy who taught me what unconditional love actually looks like. My mother called me selfish for not rushing to her hospital bed. But the truly selfish thing would have been staying in a relationship that was slowly poisoning me. The truly selfish thing would have been teaching myself that cruelty is acceptable as long as it comes from family. I walked away instead. And every day that passes, I feel a little bit lighter. Every day, the door I slammed shut feels more like freedom and less like loss. I still don't know if I'll ever open that second letter. Part of me is curious. Part of me wants to see if she's capable of real change, real accountability. But another part of me knows it doesn't matter. Her journey is her own. Mine is mine. And my journey is taking me somewhere I never expected, toward peace. Toward healing. Toward a version of myself who doesn't need anyone's permission to exist. 3 months ago, on the anniversary of Daniel's death, I went to his grave alone. Brought his favorite cookies, the ones with rainbow sprinkles that he'd loved. Sat there for hours, just talking to him. I told him about the kids at the hospital. About my cat. About how I'd finally stood up to Grandma and walked away. I think he would have understood. He was always braver than me, even at 5 years old. Even when he was scared. I'm learning to be brave like you, I told him. It's taking a while. But I'm getting there. The wind picked up, scattering leaves across the grass. For just a moment, I could have sworn I heard his laugh. But I need to tell you what happened after the hospital confrontation. The full story. Because walking away wasn't the end, it was just the beginning of understanding exactly what I've been dealing with all those years. 2 weeks after I confronted my mother, Shelley showed up at my apartment unannounced. It was a Saturday morning, And I was still in my pajamas, drinking coffee and reading a book about childhood grief that Dr. Morrison had recommended. The knock startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw Shelley standing in the hallway, shifting her weight from foot to foot, clutching her purse like a shield. I almost didn't open the door. Almost pretended I wasn't home. But curiosity won. I opened it, leaving the chain on. "Hi," Shelley said. Her eyes were red-rimmed, makeup smudged. She looked like she'd been crying recently. "Can we talk?" "About what?" "Please. Just 5 minutes." I studied her face. Saw something there I hadn't seen in a long time, something that looked almost like courage. I unhooked the chain and let her in. She walked into my small living room, looked around at the sparse furniture, the single photograph of Daniel on the bookshelf. I kept it simple here. Clean. No memories lurking in corners to ambush me. "Coffee?" I offered. "No. Thank you." She sat on the edge of my couch, perched like she might need to run. "I need to tell you something. Something I should have said a long time ago." I settled into the chair across from her, waiting. "You were right," she said quietly. "About the funeral. About all of it. I heard what Mom said to you. I heard every word. And I didn't say anything because I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Of her." Shelley's voice cracked. "I've always been scared of her. We all have. Marcus, me, even Aunt Linda. She has this way of making you feel like you're nothing if you disagree with her. Like you're worthless if you don't meet her standards." I'd known this on some level. But hearing Shelley say it out loud was different. "After you left the hospital," Shelley continued, "things got bad. Mom started calling me constantly, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day, demanding to know why I let you talk to her that way. Why I didn't defend her. She told me I was a terrible daughter for not taking her side. I'm sorry, no." Shelley shook her head firmly. "Don't apologize. You opened my eyes. I went home that day and I couldn't stop thinking about what you said. About how she visited Daniel once. Once in 11 months. And I realized, I've been making excuses for her my whole life. We all have." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I started seeing a therapist. She specializes in family dynamics. And we've been unpacking everything. All the ways Mom manipulated us, pitted us against each other, made us compete for her approval. I never saw it clearly until you walked away. Shelley, I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have defended you at the funeral. I should have told Mom that what she said was monstrous. Instead, I stood there like a coward and let it happen." Her voice broke completely. "You lost your son. Your baby boy. And in that moment, you needed your family to stand with you. And we failed you completely." I felt something loosen in my chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something adjacent to it. Recognition, maybe. Or understanding. "Thank you for saying that," I said. "I blocked Mom's number last week," Shelley said. "I'm done. I'm done letting her control how I feel about myself. I'm done making excuses for her behavior. My therapist says it's going to be a long process, but I'm committed to it." "How did she take it?" "Mom, I mean." Shelley laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "She showed up at my house. Banged on the door for 20 minutes, screaming about betrayal and ungrateful daughters. My neighbors called the police. The officers talked to her, told her she needed to leave, and she spent the whole time telling them what horrible children she had raised." "That sounds about right." "Marcus is still in contact with her. He calls me every few days, trying to convince me to reconcile. He keeps saying she's changed, that she's in therapy now and working on herself. But I don't believe it. People like Mom don't change. They just get better at hiding what they are." We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, I could hear children playing in the apartment complex courtyard. Their laughter drifted through the window, bright and uncomplicated. "Can I ask you something?" Shelley said. "Sure." "Do you think you'll ever forgive her?" I considered the question carefully. "I don't know. Right now, I don't think so. But I've learned that forgiveness isn't required for healing. I can heal without forgiving her. I can move forward without her being part of my life." "My therapist says the same thing." Shelley smiled weakly. "I think that's what I'm working toward. Not forgiveness. Just freedom. That's a good goal." She stood up, smoothing her skirt. "I should go. I just wanted you to know, you weren't wrong. About any of it. And I'm working on being the sister you deserved. Even if it's late. It's not too late, I said, and surprised myself by meaning it. After Shelley left, I sat with our conversation for a long time. It didn't erase what had happened at the funeral. It didn't undo the months of silence. But it was something. A beginning, maybe. The following week, something unexpected happened at the hospital. I was reading to a 6-year-old girl named Mia who'd just started chemotherapy. She had leukemia, like Daniel had. Same type, same aggressive timeline. Her parents were exhausted, terrified, trying to hold it together for their daughter while falling apart inside. I knew that feeling intimately. Mia's mother, Sarah, pulled me aside after the reading session. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. "And you can totally say no." "Okay." "One of the nurses mentioned that you lost a son to leukemia. Is that true?" My throat tightened. I nodded. "I'm so sorry." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I can't imagine," she stopped, unable to finish. "It's the worst thing that can happen to a person," I said quietly. "But you survive it. You find a way. And right now, Mia needs you to focus on her, not on worst-case scenarios." "I know. I'm trying. It's just, sometimes I feel so angry. Angry at the life, angry at the unfairness of it all. And then I feel guilty for being angry when I should be strong for her." "You can be both. Angry and strong. They're not mutually exclusive." We talked for nearly an hour. I told her about Daniel, about the treatments that didn't work, about the moments of hope and the crushing disappointments. But I also told her about the good parts, the way he'd laughed at silly jokes even when he felt terrible, the way he'd insisted on wearing his superhero cape to chemo appointments, the way he'd held my hand and told me he loved me even on his worst days. "How did you keep going?" Sarah asked. "After? Honestly? I didn't, for a while. I shut down. Went through the motions. But then I realized that Daniel wouldn't want me to stop living. He'd want me to find purpose. So I started volunteering here. It's hard, but it's also healing. Being here, helping other kids and families, it makes his life mean something beyond the tragedy of losing him." Sarah hugged me tightly. "Thank you. For sharing that. For being here." That conversation became the first of many. Word spread among parents in the pediatric oncology unit that I was someone who understood, someone who'd walked this path and survived. They sought me out during their darkest moments. Asked questions their doctors couldn't answer, not because the doctors lacked knowledge but because they lacked the lived experience of loss. I became a bridge between their fear and their hope. I couldn't promise them happy endings, I knew better than anyone that those weren't guaranteed. But I could promise them that they weren't alone. That whatever they were feeling was valid. That surviving this, either way it went, was possible. Dr. Morrison noticed the impact I was having. He pulled me aside one afternoon and said, "Have you ever considered going back to school? Getting certified as a grief counselor or child life specialist?" I hadn't. The idea seemed impossible. I barely had money for rent, let alone tuition. But he connected me with a scholarship program for people who'd experienced significant loss and wanted to work in pediatric care. I applied, not expecting much. 3 months later, I got the acceptance letter. I'd be starting classes in the fall. Part-time, online, working toward a certification that would let me do this work professionally. The scholarship covered tuition. I'd have to juggle it with my job at the insurance company, but it felt manageable. It felt like purpose. The day I got the acceptance letter, I called Shelley. We'd been talking more regularly, carefully rebuilding something that resembled a sisterly relationship. "That's amazing," she said when I told her the news. "Daniel would be so proud of you." "I hope so," I said. "I'm trying to make his life matter. To turn this horrible thing into something that helps other people." "You're doing that already. You've been doing it." We talked about her therapy progress, about her kids, about safe topics that didn't involve our mother. It was strange, learning to have a relationship with my sister outside of our mother's shadow. But it was also refreshing. I was discovering that Shelley was funny, thoughtful, and dealing with her own demons. "Has Mom tried to contact you?" I asked eventually. "Constantly. Letters, emails, having people call me on her behalf. I ignore all of it." Shelley paused. "Marcus told me she's telling everyone that we've both abandoned her. That she's the victim of cruel, ungrateful daughters. She's hosting these little gatherings at her house where she cries about how alone she is." Of course she is. The thing is, I don't care anymore. My therapist helped me understand that I can't control her narrative. She's going to tell whatever story makes her look good. But the people who matter, the people who've been paying attention, they know the truth. How's Marcus handling all this? Not well. He's still her golden child, still trying to fix everything. He keeps telling me I'm making a mistake, that family should forgive each other, that mom's getting older and I'll regret this when she's gone. But I won't. I know I won't. I understood that certainty. I felt it too. Around this time, something else happened that shifted my perspective even further. I got a call from Daniel's father, Michael, the man who'd walked out on us when Daniel was 2 years old. I hadn't heard from him since the funeral, where he'd shown up for approximately 45 minutes, cried dramatically, and left without speaking to me. "Hey," he said when I answered, his voice uncertain. "It's Michael." "I know." "Right. I wanted to talk to you about something. Can we meet for coffee?" Every instinct told me to say no. But curiosity won again. It seemed to be winning a lot lately. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment. Michael looked older than I remembered, graying at the temples, wearing a suit that suggested his life had gone well since he'd abandoned his responsibilities. "Thanks for meeting me," he said once we'd sat down with our drinks. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't." He nodded, looking uncomfortable. "I want to apologize. For everything. For leaving you when you were pregnant, for not being there when Daniel was sick, for being a terrible father and an even worse partner." "Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Michael? You were terrible. You abandoned your son. You missed his entire life because you were too selfish to step up. An apology doesn't change any of that." "I know. I know it doesn't. But I need you to understand something." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "I saw your mother at Daniel's funeral. I saw how she treated you. And I realized that you'd been dealing with her toxicity while also dealing with me abandoning you, and you still managed to be an incredible mother to Daniel. You gave him everything, and I gave him nothing, and I've been carrying that guilt ever since. Is that why you're here? To make yourself feel better?" "No. Yes. Maybe partly." He rubbed his face. "I'm in therapy. Working through why I ran away, why I couldn't handle being a father. And my therapist suggested I reach out, try to make amends where I can." "You can't make amends with Daniel. He's gone." "I know. But maybe I can make amends with you. Or at least acknowledge what you went through. You raised our son alone. You dealt with your mother's cruelty alone. You watched him die alone. And I should have been there. I should have been there for all of it." I stared into my coffee, watching the steam rise. "You should have been. But you weren't. And that's something you have to live with, not me." "I'm getting married next month," Michael said abruptly. "To a woman who has 2 kids from a previous marriage. And I keep thinking, I'm going to be a stepfather to her children. I'm going to show up for them, be present, do all the things I didn't do for Daniel. And it feels wrong. Like I don't deserve to get a second chance when I completely failed the first time." "You don't deserve it," I said flatly. "But life isn't about deserving. You're getting a second chance. What you do with it is up to you. Just don't expect me to absolve you or make you feel better about it." We sat in silence for a moment. "Your mother called me a few weeks ago," Michael said finally. "Did you know that?" My head snapped up. "What?" "She found my number somehow. Called me crying, saying you'd abandoned her when she was sick, that you were cruel and vindictive. She wanted me to talk to you, convince you to reconcile with her." "What did you say?" "I told her I was the last person who should give you advice about anything, and that from what I'd observed, she was the cruel one, not you." Then I hung up. He smiled grimly. "She called back 3 times. I blocked her number." I felt something like vindication wash over me. Even Michael, the man who'd abandoned me, could see through my mother's manipulations. "Thank you for telling me," I said. "I also wanted to tell you that I've set up a trust fund. In Daniel's name. For pediatric cancer research. It's not much, but I'm contributing to it monthly. And when I die, whatever's left in my estate will go to it. It won't bring him back. It won't make up for what I didn't do. But it's something." I didn't know what to say to that. It was both too much and not enough. Anyway, Michael stood up, looking awkward again. "That's what I wanted to tell you. I'm sorry. For everything. And I hope you find peace. You deserve it more than anyone I know." He left before I could respond. I sat in the coffee shop for another hour, processing the conversation. Michael's apology didn't heal anything. It didn't change the past. But it was another piece of validation that I hadn't been wrong. About him? About my mother? About the people who'd failed me? That evening, I finally opened my mother's second letter. It was longer than the first. Pages and pages of her handwriting, explaining her childhood, her relationship with her mother, the pressures she'd felt trying to be perfect. She talked about her therapy sessions, about the things she was learning about herself. And at the end, she wrote, "I know I can't undo what I said at Daniel's funeral. I know I can't give you back the years I wasted being critical and cold. But I want to try. I want to be different. If you're willing to give me a chance, I'd like to start over. As strangers, if that's what it takes. Building something new instead of trying to salvage what's broken." I read the letter 3 times. Then I wrote back. Not a long letter. Just a short note that said, "I appreciate you acknowledging what happened. I appreciate that you're in therapy and working on yourself. But I'm not ready to have you in my life. Maybe someday. But not now. I need to focus on my own healing. I hope you understand." I mailed it the next day and felt lighter for having responded, even if my response was a boundary instead of a bridge. I'm not a perfect person. I'm not even sure I'm a good person. But I'm a person who's trying. Who's surviving. Who's learning that sometimes the most important thing you can do is protect yourself, even when everyone tells you that you're wrong. Especially when everyone tells you you're wrong. So that's my story. The full story. Not just the confrontation at the hospital, but everything that came after. The slow, painful process of understanding what I'd been dealing with all along. The rebuilding of relationships with people who were willing to do the work. The setting of boundaries with people who weren't. I don't regret what I said to my mother. I don't regret walking away. The only thing I regret is that it took me so long to realize I deserved better. But I know it now. And I'm building a life based on that knowledge. A life where I'm surrounded by people who show up, who do the hard work, who choose growth over comfort. A life where Daniel's memory is honored not through suffering but through service. I start my classes next month. I volunteer at the hospital twice a week. I have coffee with Shelley every Sunday. I take care of my ridiculous orange cat who thinks he's a guard dog. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, I'm healing. Not because someone gave me permission. Not because I earned it. But because I decided I was worth saving, even when the people who were supposed to love me most acted like I wasn't. That decision changed everything. And it's going to have to be enough.
Story 4.
During my cancer treatment, my family started a GoFundMe, but the money went to my brother's business idea. When I found out, my mom said, he needed it more. "You're going to be fine," I said nothing. 6 months into remission, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Finally, a voicemail from Dad, "The business failed. We need $45,000 by Friday." I listened to it twice, then I blocked their numbers. All of them. Mom, Dad, my brother Tyler, even my Aunt Linda who always sent those long voice messages that started with "Sweetie, I hate to bother you but." 23 contacts, gone. The silence that followed felt like stepping into a soundproof room after years of living next to a highway. Let me back up, because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I'm cruel, that family is family, that surely there's more to the story. You're right about that last part. There's so much more, and none of it makes them look better. 2 years ago, I was 28 years old, working as a middle school art teacher, and living in a modest apartment that smelled perpetually of acrylic paint and the lavender candles I bought in bulk. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Then came the diagnosis, stage 3 breast cancer. The doctor's office had those fluorescent lights that make everyone look half dead already, which felt almost funny in a sick way. I remember staring at a motivational poster behind Dr. Chen's head, something about strength with a photo of a mountain, while she explained chemotherapy protocols and survival rates. My family rallied immediately. Mom cried on the phone for 40 minutes straight. Dad drove 3 hours to my apartment and just held me while I stared at the wall. Tyler, my older brother by 4 years, showed up with groceries and helped me deep clean my apartment like we were preparing for battle. "We're going to get through this," Mom said during a family dinner at their house, her hand squeezing mine so tight my fingers went numb. "All of us. Together." I believed her. That's the thing that still twists in my chest sometimes, that suffocating feeling of having believed so completely. The medical bills started piling up almost immediately. My insurance covered some of it, but there were gaps, wide, expensive gaps that swallowed my savings like a sinkhole. Co-pays, medications, special compression garments, the fancy anti-nausea drugs that actually worked. I had to cut my hours at work, which meant less income right when I needed more. That's when Mom created the GoFundMe. She called me on a Tuesday evening, her voice bright with that particular enthusiasm she got when she'd solved a problem. "Honey, I set up a fundraising page for you. I know you hate asking for help, but people want to contribute. Your situation is already being shared all over Facebook." I felt embarrassed but grateful. "Mom, you didn't have to. Nonsense. You're my daughter. Let people help." She paused, and I could hear Dad saying something in the background. "We've already raised $800 in 3 hours." The page was actually beautiful. Mom had chosen a photo of me from my cousin's wedding the year before, back when my hair was long and my smile didn't have that tight, brightened quality it had developed recently. She'd written a heartfelt description of my diagnosis, my love for teaching, how I'd always been the one to volunteer at community events and help neighbors with their kids' art projects. "Sarah doesn't ask for much," the description read. "But cancer doesn't care about that. Please help our girl focus on healing instead of drowning in medical debt." The donations flooded in. Former students and their parents, people from our church, Mom and Dad's friends, distant relatives I barely remembered, even strangers moved by the story. $5 here, $50 there, $100 from my old college roommate. The comments section filled with prayers and encouragement. "Thinking of you, Sarah. You've got this, warrior. My aunt beat breast cancer. You will too." Within 2 weeks, the fund had reached $15,000. By the end of the month, $23,000. I cried when Mom showed me the total, overwhelmed by the generosity of near strangers. "I'll pay them all back somehow," I whispered. Mom hugged me. "Don't be silly. Just focus on getting better." The chemotherapy was worse than I'd imagined. They don't really prepare you for how it feels to be simultaneously exhausted and wired, nauseous but unable to eat, freezing cold but sweating through your sheets. My hair came out in clumps that clogged the shower drain. I started wearing the soft cotton caps Mom bought me, 12 of them in different colors, though after a while I stopped caring what color and just grabbed whichever was closest. My family visited regularly during those months. Dad would bring soup from my favorite Vietnamese restaurant, even though I could barely taste anything. Tyler came over to watch movies, falling asleep on my couch while I lay under 3 blankets, too sick to follow the plot. Mom organized my pill schedule and drove me to appointments when I was too weak to drive myself. But something started feeling off around month 3 of treatment. It was small things at first. Mom mentioning that Tyler had some exciting opportunities he was exploring. Dad getting tense when I asked about the GoFundMe money, saying we'd settle up all the finances after treatment ended. Tyler suddenly having a new laptop, expensive noise-canceling headphones, talking about business meetings and investment opportunities. "What kind of business?" I asked him one afternoon. He'd shown up at my apartment with Thai food, but I noticed he'd also been taking calls in the hallway, his voice low and animated. "Tech stuff," he said vaguely. "Software solutions for small businesses. Real cutting-edge applications." Tyler had dropped out of college 6 years earlier and had bounced between jobs ever since. Sales positions, mostly, which he'd either quit or been fired from. The words cutting-edge coming from his mouth felt wrong, like watching a cat bark. But I was too tired to push. Too sick to care about much beyond surviving until my next treatment session. The bills kept coming, though, and they were starting to panic me. I'd received a notice that my insurance had denied coverage for one of the newer medications Dr. Chen wanted to try. Out-of-pocket cost, $8,000. The collection notices from the hospital were printed on increasingly aggressive colors of paper, white, then yellow, then pink. I called Mom one evening, my hands shaking as I held yet another bill. "Hey sweetie," she answered, her voice distracted. I could hear Tyler in the background, laughing about something. "Mom, I'm looking at a bill for the medication Dr. Chen prescribed. My insurance won't cover it, and I don't have $8,000. Can we use some of the GoFundMe money?" Silence stretched between us, punctuated only by Tyler's distant voice saying something about market penetration strategies. "We'll figure it out," Mom said finally. "Don't worry about money right now." "But that's what the fund is for, right? My medical expenses?" "Sarah." Her voice had that edge it got when she was about to shut down a conversation. "I said we'll figure it out. Your father and I are handling the finances. I'm 28 years old. I can handle my own finances, I just need access to. You're sick and you need to focus on getting well, not on stressing about bills. Trust your family." She hung up before I could respond. That's when the cold feeling started in my stomach, that knowing but not wanting to know sensation that something was deeply wrong. I tried to log into the GoFundMe account. Password didn't work. I attempted a reset, but the recovery email was Mom's, not mine. The page was still up, still showing the total, now at $31,000, but I couldn't access any of it. I told myself I was being paranoid. These were my parents. This was my brother. They loved me? They wouldn't. But I couldn't shake it. 2 weeks later, I was at my parents' house for Sunday dinner, which had become a weekly ritual they insisted on despite my frequent nausea. I'd learned to just push food around my plate and smile, pretend I was eating more than I actually was. Tyler was there, on his phone at the table despite Mom usually having a strict no-phones policy. He was grinning at the screen, typing rapidly. "Tyler, put that away," Mom said, but her tone was fond, indulgent. Sorry. He pocketed it but kept smiling. "Just closing a potential deal." "What kind of deal?" I asked. Dad coughed into his napkin. Mom suddenly became very interested in passing the potatoes. Tyler leaned back in his chair, and I recognized that expression. It was the same one he'd had when we were kids, and he'd gotten away with something, that mix of pride and smugness that made me want to throw something at him. "I'm developing an app," he announced. "Business management software. Think of it like a personal assistant for entrepreneurs. Task tracking, invoice generation, inventory management, all integrated with AI predictive analytics." The words sounded rehearsed, like he'd practiced this pitch in the mirror. "That sounds complicated," I said carefully. "Do you have programming experience?" "I'm working with developers. I'm the ideas guy, the vision behind it." He gestured expansively. "I've already got interest from potential investors once we finish the beta version. Where did you get funding for developers?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Mom stood abruptly, gathering plates even though we weren't finished. "Who wants dessert? I made that cherry pie you like, Sarah." "Mom." I stayed seated, my eyes on Tyler. "Where did you get the money?" "We helped him," Dad said quietly, not meeting my gaze. "Helped him how?" "Sarah, you're getting upset over nothing," Mom said from the kitchen doorway. Tyler had an opportunity. With my GoFundMe money. It wasn't a question anymore. The silence confirmed everything. "Sarah, listen," Tyler started, leaning forward. "It's an investment in our family's future. Once the app launches, I'll make back triple what was put in. You'll get your medical bills paid and have money left over." I felt cold all over despite the warm house. "How much?" "How much what?" Mom's voice had gone high and thin. "How much of the money did you give him?" Nobody answered. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and pulled up the GoFundMe page, which showed the final total, $38,427. "How much, Tyler?" He had the grace to look uncomfortable, at least. "Most of it. But Sarah, you have to understand, this is a guaranteed return on, I have cancer." My voice came out flat, emotionless, which was strange because inside I was screaming. "People donated that money so I wouldn't drown in medical debt while undergoing chemotherapy. And you used it to fund your app idea. It's not just an idea, it's, how much is left?" Dad cleared his throat. "About $7,000. $31,000. Gone. Given to my brother who couldn't hold down a sales job at a car dealership." I stood up slowly, my legs weak. "I need that $7,000 transferred to my account by tomorrow." "Sarah, tomorrow." Mom moved to block my path to the door, her face crumpling. "Honey, please. Tyler's worked so hard on this. He needed the capital too, he needed it." I heard my voice rise, finally cracking. "I have cancer, Mom. I can't afford my medication. I got a letter threatening to send my account to collections. But Tyler needed it?" "You're going to be fine," Mom said, and her tone had shifted to something harder, almost defensive. "Dr. Chen said your prognosis is good. Tyler's been struggling for years, and this is his chance to finally what? Scam people who thought they were helping your dying daughter?" "You're not dying," Mom snapped. "Don't be so dramatic." I stared at her. My mother, who'd held me at the hospital, who'd organized my pill schedule, who'd promised we'd get through this together. "Dramatic," I repeated softly. "Listen to yourself," she continued, her voice taking on that sharp edge. "You're being selfish. This family has sacrificed so much for you these past months. Your father used his vacation days to drive you to appointments. I've spent hours managing that fundraising page and coordinating with relatives. And Tyler put his own life on hold to support you. By stealing money donated for my cancer treatment. It's not stealing. Dad's voice was quiet but firm. It's family helping family. And Tyler's going to pay it back with interest once his fantasy app makes millions? I could barely breathe. The room felt too small, too hot, their faces too familiar and too alien all at once. Do you even hear yourselves? Tyler stood up, his chair scraping loudly. You know what? You're right. You're the sick one, so you get to be the center of attention forever. Never mind that I've been struggling for years while you got to play teacher and live your perfect little life. Perfect life? I laughed, and it came out broken. I have cancer, Tyler. And you're going to survive it, Mom interjected. Tyler needs this money more than you do right now. Your medical bills can wait. They'll work out payment plans. But this opportunity, this is Tyler's one shot to get out. I was moving toward the door. All of you, I can't even look at you right now. Sarah, if you walk out that door without resolving this, Mom started. You what? Take more money that doesn't belong to you? I yanked the door open. The cold evening air hit my face. Transfer that $7,000 to my account by tomorrow, or I'm reporting fraud to GoFundMe and the police. You wouldn't. But Mom's face had gone pale. Try me. I drove home in a daze, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. When I got to my apartment, I sat in the car for 20 minutes, watching the numbers on the dashboard clock change, unable to move. The $7,000 appeared in my account the next morning. No message, no explanation. Just a bank transfer. I didn't speak to any of them for the rest of my treatment. They tried, of course. Phone calls I didn't answer. Text messages I deleted without reading. Mom showed up at my apartment twice, knocking for 15 minutes before finally leaving. Tyler sent a long email explaining his vision and how I was crushing his dreams by being unsupportive. I finished chemotherapy alone. Started radiation alone. Celebrated my final treatment alone, with a cupcake from the grocery store and a streaming service marathon. 6 months into remission, I was still rebuilding. Physically, emotionally, financially. The $7,000 had helped, but I was still paying off medical debt in installments. I'd started working full-time again, though I tired more easily than before. My hair had grown back in these weird curls I was still getting used to. I created a new normal, one that didn't include family dinners or Tyler's get-rich-quick schemes or Mom's manipulative phone calls. Then my phone started ringing. I'd blocked their numbers, but they'd found workarounds. Tyler called from different numbers. Mom used her friends' phones. Dad tried calling from work. I ignored all of it. Then came the voicemail from Dad's office number, which I hadn't thought to block. Sarah. His voice sounded older, strained. I know you don't want to talk to us, and I understand why. But this is an emergency. Tyler's business. It failed. He owes people money. Serious people. We remortgaged the house to help him, but it's not enough. We need $45,000 by Friday or we lose everything. Please, Sarah. I know we hurt you, but we're family. Call me back. I sat on my couch, phone in hand, and listened to it again. Then a third time. The thing about revenge is that you always imagine it'll be some grand, elaborate plan. Something clever and devastating. But real revenge is quieter. It's simply choosing not to save people who left you to drown. I blocked Dad's office number. That should have been the end of it, but the persistence was almost impressive. Aunt Linda showed up at my apartment building, somehow getting past the security door when another resident left. I watched through my peephole as she knocked and called my name for 10 minutes before giving up. They tried email next. Mom sent a novel-length message about family loyalty and forgiveness. Tyler sent one blaming me for his business failure because the stress of our estrangement had affected his decision-making. Dad's was shorter, just numbers, loan amounts, interest rates, foreclosure timelines. I read them once, then created a filter to automatically delete anything from their addresses. Here's what I found out later, pieced together from public records and a conversation with my cousin Jennifer, who'd stayed neutral in the whole mess. Tyler had burned through the $31,000 in about 4 months. The developers he'd hired were 2 guys he met online who charged premium rates and delivered basic templates. The business meetings were lunch pitches to friends of friends who smiled politely and never returned his calls. The potential investors didn't exist. When the money ran out and he had nothing to show for it, he convinced Mom and Dad to take out a second mortgage on their house. The house they'd lived in for 32 years, where Tyler and I had grown up, where Mom had hosted countless family gatherings. Another $40,000, gone within 6 months. Tyler had apparently gotten involved with some kind of multi-level marketing scheme next, promising that it would solve everything. He'd pressured his remaining friends to invest. He'd maxed out credit cards. He'd borrowed from loan sharks, or at least, that's what Dad's voicemail had implied with serious people. Now they were drowning, and the house they'd put up as collateral was about to be taken. Mom told mutual friends I was heartless and cruel. She posted vague Facebook statuses about ungrateful children and fair-weather family members. Several people who'd donated to my GoFundMe actually reached out to ask if they should request refunds, which told me the Whisper campaign had been thorough. Jennifer called me one evening about 3 weeks after the voicemail. "Hey," she said, her voice careful. "How are you doing?" "I'm fine. I heard about everything." I waited. "Your mom told my mom that you're refusing to help them with the house situation." "That's accurate." "Sarah," Jennifer sighed. "Look, I get that you're angry. What they did was horrible. But they're going to lose their home. With the money that was donated for my cancer treatment." "I know, but, do you?" I kept my voice level. "Because I don't think you do. I had cancer, Jennifer. I was sick and scared and in pain. People donated money specifically to help me, and my family stole it. Not borrowed it. Not asked for a loan. Stole it. For my brother's fantasy business venture. They thought it would work out. That doesn't make it okay. I'm not saying it does. I'm just saying. Their family. Your mom is devastated. My mom told me I was being dramatic about having cancer. She said Tyler needed the money more than I did." Silence. "She actually said that?" Jennifer's voice had changed. Word for word. More silence, then a long exhale. "I didn't know that part. There's a lot people don't know because my family has spent the last year telling everyone I'm the villain in this story. What are you going to do?" "Nothing," I said simply. "I'm going to do nothing, and let the consequences of their choices play out." "That's cold, Sarah." "Maybe. Or maybe it's just being as unsupportive to them as they were to me when I needed them most." Jennifer didn't call back after that. The foreclosure proceedings moved forward. I know because Mom sent me copies of every legal document, as if the weight of official paperwork would guilt me into action. Each envelope felt like another attempt at manipulation. "Look what you're letting happen. Look at your family suffering." I threw them away unopened after the first 2. Tyler tried a different approach. He showed up at my school. I was in my classroom after hours, organizing supplies for the next day's project on color theory. The hallways were mostly empty, just the distant sound of the custodial staff's cleaning cart and the hum of the building's heating system. "Sarah." I turned to find him in my doorway, and the shock of seeing him after months almost made me drop the jar of paintbrushes I was holding. He looked terrible. Thinner, with dark circles under his eyes and a nervous energy that made him seem like he might vibrate apart. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair unwashed. "You need to leave," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "This is my workplace. I drove 2 hours to talk to you. Please. 5 minutes. You stole money from my cancer fund. We have nothing to discuss." "I know." He stepped into the room, and I instinctively moved to keep a table between us. "I know I screwed up. I screwed everything up. But Sarah, they're going to lose the house. Mom and Dad, they're going to lose their home because of me." "Because of you," I agreed. "Not because of me. You could help. I know you have some savings now, you're working full-time again. I have savings because I'm paying off medical debt from when I had cancer and my family stole the money people donated to help me." Tyler's face crumpled. For a second, he looked like the brother I'd grown up with, the one who'd taught me to ride a bike and scared away the kids who'd made fun of my art. Then the moment passed. "I'll pay you back," he said desperately. "However long it takes. I'll get a job, a real job, and I'll pay you back every cent. Just please, please help them. They're our parents. They chose you over me when I was dying. You weren't dying." The casual dismissal in those 3 words crystallized something in me. "Get out," I said quietly. "Sarah, get out of my classroom, out of my school, and out of my life. If you come here again, I'll call the police and file for a restraining order." "You've changed," he said, and his voice had turned bitter. "Cancer made you hard." "No." I met his eyes. "You all did that." He left, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. I sat down at my desk and shook for 20 minutes before I could drive home. The foreclosure sale happened on a Tuesday. I didn't attend, but Jennifer sent me a text, "House sold. They're looking for an apartment." I didn't respond. What I did instead was something I'd been planning for months. I contacted every single person who'd donated to my GoFundMe, or at least, everyone whose contact information was public or who'd left comments with their names. 147 people. I sent each a personal message. I wanted to reach out to thank you for your generous donation to my cancer treatment fund 2 years ago. Your kindness meant everything to me during the hardest period of my life. I also wanted you to know that due to family circumstances, much of the donated money was diverted before reaching me. I'm not asking for anything, but I believe in transparency, and you deserve to know the truth about where your contribution went. I'm healthy now, and working to pay off my remaining medical debt. Thank you again for your compassion. Not everyone responded, but enough did. Some people were furious. Some demanded details, which I provided without editorializing, just facts, dates, amounts. Some wanted to report it to GoFundMe. Some asked if they could donate again, which I politely declined. Several contacted my mother directly. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. GoFundMe launched an investigation. Mom and Dad were flagged for violating the platform's terms of service. The page was taken down. People who donated started sharing their own stories about the situation on social media, tagging my family members. The court of public opinion is harsh and swift. Mom called me from another new number, screaming, "How could you? We've lost everything and you're destroying what little reputation we have left." "You destroyed your own reputation," I said calmly. "I just told people the truth." "You vindictive, selfish," she was crying now, her voice breaking. "We're your family." "You know what's funny? You keep saying that. Like it's supposed to mean something after what you did." "I made a mistake. We all did. But you're taking everything from us." "No, Mom. I'm just not saving you from the consequences of your own choices. There's a difference. I'll never forgive you for this." "Good," I said. "That makes 2 of us." I hung up and blocked that number too. The next few months were quieter. My parents moved into a small apartment across town. Tyler got a job at a warehouse, according to Jennifer. Mom stopped posting on Facebook entirely. Dad apparently had a health scare, something with his heart, but recovered. I heard all this secondhand, through Jennifer's occasional updates that I never asked for, but she seemed compelled to give. "They're really struggling," she told me one evening when she'd called about something unrelated and couldn't resist adding it. "Your dad looks like he's aged 10 years. "Cancer aged me too," I said. Nobody seemed that concerned then. "You're really not going to forgive them?" "Maybe someday. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. They made their choices. I'm making mine." Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "You know what's weird? I always thought you were the soft one in your family. The artistic, gentle one." "I was? Then I learned that soft things get crushed." That seemed to be the end of it, or so I thought. A year passed. Then another. I got promoted at work. Started dating someone kind who understood that some family wounds don't heal. Adopted a cat who slept on my chest and purred while I painted. Life moved forward, like it does. Then, 2 weeks ago, I got a letter. Not an email, not a text, an actual physical letter in my mailbox, addressed in Tyler's handwriting. I almost threw it away. Stood over my trash can with it unopened, debating. Finally, curiosity won. The letter was 3 pages, handwritten, and surprisingly coherent. He didn't ask for money. Didn't make excuses. Just apologized. "I know sorry doesn't fix anything," he wrote. "I know I took something irreplaceable from you. Not just the money, but your trust, your security during the scariest time of your life. I've spent 2 years trying to understand how I justified it to myself. The truth is I was desperate and jealous and stupid. You were always the successful one, the good one, and I was drowning. When I saw that money, I convinced myself I deserved it more because I needed it to finally be someone." The letter went on, detailing his therapy sessions, his attempts to make amends to other people he'd hurt, his slow acceptance that some things can't be fixed. "Mom and Dad still think you're wrong," he wrote near the end. "They still believe families should forgive and forget and move past things. But I understand now that what we did isn't something you should have to move past. We stole from you when you were vulnerable. We chose my imaginary future over your actual survival. And then we blamed you when the consequences caught up to us." The final paragraph made my hands shake. "I'm not asking you to forgive me or talk to me or let me back into your life. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. And I'm sorry. You deserved better. You deserved a family who protected you instead of using you. I hope you're happy now. I hope your life is full of people who actually love you the way families should. I read it 3 times, then put it in my desk drawer. I haven't responded. I might never respond. But something about it loosened a knot in my chest I didn't realize was still there. People keep asking me if I regret how I handled things. If I feel guilty about my parents losing their house, about not helping when they were desperate. The answer is complicated. Do I wish things had gone differently? Of course. I wish I'd had a family that didn't steal from me. I wish my brother hadn't been so desperately broken that he'd sabotaged his own sister. I wish my parents had chosen protecting their sick daughter over enabling their son's delusions. But I don't regret my choices. I don't regret drawing boundaries or protecting myself or letting them face consequences. Sometimes people mistake kindness for weakness. They think being soft-spoken or artistic or empathetic means you'll accept anything. That you'll let people hurt you repeatedly because that's what good people do. But there's nothing good about being a doormat. There's nothing noble about lighting yourself on fire to keep others warm, especially when they're the ones who started the fire. My family taught me that lesson the hard way. These days, I'm building something new. A chosen family of friends who showed up when I was sick and never asked for anything in return. A partner who understands that trust is earned, not assumed. A life that's mine, not constantly hemorrhaging resources to other people's crises. I still teach art to middle schoolers. Still buy lavender candles in bulk. Still have medical bills to pay, though fewer now. And sometimes, late at night, I think about that voicemail from Dad. His voice strained and desperate, asking for $45,000 by Friday. I think about how easy it would have been to save them, how I technically could have done it. And then I think about Mom's voice saying, he needed it more. You're going to be fine. And I sleep just fine. Because the truth is, they're going to be fine too. They're struggling, yes. They lost their house. Their relationships are damaged. Tyler is working a warehouse job instead of living his entrepreneur fantasy. But they're alive. They're not fighting cancer while drowning in medical debt. They're not being betrayed by the people who promised to protect them. They're just facing the normal, predictable consequences of their terrible choices. And that's not my problem to solve. Last week, I got an email from a former student. She's in college now, studying art education because, she said, my class had inspired her. She attached a photo of a painting she'd done, bold colors, confident brushstrokes, no hesitation. You taught me that art takes courage, she wrote. That creating something beautiful means being vulnerable. But you also have to protect your work, protect yourself. Otherwise, people will paint over what you've made and call it an improvement. I hung that painting above my desk. But I need to tell you about what happened 3 months ago, because that's when things got truly strange. That's when I realized the story wasn't quite over. I was at the grocery store on a Saturday afternoon, debating between 2 brands of pasta sauce, when I heard a familiar voice in the next aisle. Mom. My first instinct was to abandon my cart and leave through the nearest exit. But something made me stay. Maybe curiosity. Maybe that same impulse that made me read Tyler's letter. I moved closer to the aisle end, staying out of sight. She was talking to another woman, someone I didn't recognize. Their voices carried clearly. Such a difficult year, Mom was saying, her voice heavy with practiced sadness. But we're managing. You have to stay strong for your family, you know? I can't imagine, the other woman said sympathetically. Losing your home and everything. Well, we made sacrifices for our children. That's what parents do. We gave everything to help them, and sometimes. She paused, and I could picture her dabbing at her eyes. Sometimes children don't understand the sacrifices until they're older. Until they have their own kids. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Your daughter, the one who is sick, the woman continued. She must be so grateful for everything you did during her treatment. You would think so, Mom said, and her voice had shifted into something bitter. But illness changes people. It can make them selfish. Focused only on themselves. I rounded the corner before I could stop myself. Hi, Mom. She went pale. Actually stumbled backward a step, her hand flying to her chest. The other woman looked between us, clearly sensing the tension. Sarah, Mom breathed. Don't stop on my account, I said pleasantly. You were just explaining how cancer made me selfish. I'd love to hear more about that. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. I turned to the other woman, who looked deeply uncomfortable. Hi. I'm the daughter. The one with cancer. The one they started a GoFundMe for and then gave the money to my brother for a business idea that failed spectacularly. But I'm the selfish one for not paying their mortgage after they stole from me. The woman's eyes went wide. Sarah, Mom hissed. This is not the place. No, you're right. The place for this conversation was 2 years ago, when you could have admitted what you did and apologized. Instead, you're in grocery stores telling strangers I'm ungrateful. We gave you $7,000. You gave me $7,000 of the $38,000 that people donated for my medical bills. Congratulations on your generosity. The other woman had started backing away, clearly wanting no part of this. Mom noticed and grabbed her arm desperately. She's exaggerating. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, I said. Every word I just said is documented fact. Want to see the GoFundMe page before it was taken down? The bank transfers? The timeline of when Tyler burned through the money? Mom's face had gone from pale to red. You've poisoned everyone against us. Our friends, our church, even our own family. You've told your twisted version of events and made us out to be monsters. I told the truth. If the truth makes you look like monsters, that's not my fault. We're your parents. Her voice cracked, rising. We raised you, fed you, clothed you, paid for your education, and then stole from me when I was dying. You weren't dying. Mom screamed it, loud enough that people in other aisles went quiet. Your prognosis was good. Tyler was actually struggling, actually needed help, and you couldn't see past your own. I had cancer, Mom. Stage 3 breast cancer. I lost my hair. I vomited until I couldn't stand. I lay awake at night wondering if I'd live to see 30. And you think Tyler's failed business idea was more important than that? She was crying now, but they weren't sad tears. They were angry, frustrated tears of someone who felt wronged. You're just like your father's side of the family, she spat. Cold. Unforgiving. Holding grudges forever. Good, I said quietly. Maybe they were onto something. I left my card in the aisle and walked out. My hands didn't shake until I reached my car. That encounter did something to me. Broke open something I'd been keeping carefully sealed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing Mom's voice, you weren't dying. As if cancer was only serious if it killed you. As if suffering only counted if it reached some arbitrary threshold. As if I should have been grateful for whatever scraps of concern they'd thrown my way while funding Tyler's delusions. I got up at 2 in the morning and did something I hadn't done in months. I painted. Not the careful, teacherly paintings I did for demonstrations. Not pleasant landscapes or still lifes. I painted rage. I painted betrayal. I painted family dinner tables where everyone smiled while slowly poisoning each other. By dawn, I had 3 canvases covered in violent reds and blacks, images distorted and screaming. My partner, Marcus, found me asleep on the floor of my home studio at 7 a.m., paint on my hands and clothes, brushes scattered everywhere. Sarah? He crouched beside me, gently shaking my shoulder. Hey, what happened? I told him about the grocery store. About Mom's performance for a stranger. About the rage that had been building in my chest since that Sunday dinner 2 years ago. Marcus listened, his hand steady on my back. He'd heard parts of this story before, but never with this much raw emotion. I'd always tried to keep it contained, to sound rational and justified and calm. I'm so tired, I whispered. I'm so tired of them rewriting history. Of them telling everyone I'm the villain. I just want them to leave me alone. Have you considered a cease and desist letter? Marcus asked. Like, legally? I hadn't. But the idea took root immediately. By that afternoon, I drafted an email to a lawyer Jennifer had recommended months ago for an unrelated issue. By Monday, I had a consultation scheduled. By Wednesday, I had a formal cease and desist letter ready to send. The letter was simple and devastating. It demanded that my parents and Tyler stop discussing my medical history, my personal finances, or any details about our estrangement with third parties. It threatened legal action for defamation if they continued spreading false narratives about my character or my actions. Tyler called from yet another new number within hours of receiving his copy. I answered without thinking. Stop calling me. Sarah, please, you have to stop this. His voice was panicked. A legal letter? Really? You left me no choice. Mom is telling strangers I'm selfish and ungrateful. You all keep rewriting history to make yourselves victims. I'm done. We'll stop, okay? We'll stop talking about it. Just don't make this a legal thing. Should have thought about that before stealing from my cancer fund. I know. He was crying now. I know, okay? I wrote you that letter. I apologized. What more do you want from me? I want you to leave me alone. All of you. Completely. Forever. We're family. No, I interrupted. We're people who share DNA. That's all. Family doesn't do what you did. Sarah, please. Mom's not well. This stress, it's killing her. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. They're old and scared and I was scared too, I said softly. I was terrified. And they chose your app idea over my survival. So forgive me if I don't particularly care about their stress levels now. You're going to regret this someday. When they're gone and you didn't get to what, Tyler? Reconcile? Pretend it never happened? Form some happy family again? I laughed, and it sounded hollow even to me. That ship sailed when Mom handed you my medical money. People make mistakes. And people face consequences. That's how the world works. I hung up before he could respond. The cease and desist did exactly what I'd hoped. The public narrative shifted, or at least quieted. People stopped bringing it up to Jennifer, stopped asking mutual acquaintances about poor Tyler and his family. The absence of their constant rewriting left space for the truth to simply exist, uncontested. But something unexpected happened too. Other people started reaching out. People I barely knew, or hadn't spoken to in years. A former colleague whose sister had died of cancer. A neighbor whose family had stolen her inheritance. A student's parent who'd been financially abused by relatives. They all said versions of the same thing: thank you for standing up for yourself. Thank you for showing that it's okay to walk away. I hadn't realized how many people were trapped in similar situations, bound by guilt and obligation to families that harmed them. My story, apparently, had given them permission to consider different choices. One email particularly stuck with me. It was from a woman named Patricia, whose adult son had emptied her savings for a business investment while she was recovering from a stroke. Her family had pressured her to forgive him, to help him when his venture failed, to enable his next scheme. I told them no because of you, she wrote. I showed them your story, or what I knew of it from mutual friends. And I said, if someone can walk away from their entire family after cancer, I can walk away from one manipulative son. He's learning consequences. And I'm sleeping better than I have in years. That's when I understood something crucial. This wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't just about stolen money or betrayed trust or families imploding under the weight of their own dysfunction. It was about the permission to prioritize self-preservation over obligation. The revolutionary idea that you don't owe people forgiveness just because they're related to you. I framed Patricia's email and hung it next to my student's painting. Around this time, I got a surprise visit at school. The principal called me to the office during my planning period, which immediately set off alarm bells. Had my family escalated things somehow? Filed a complaint? But when I arrived, I found a woman in her 50s waiting, professionally dressed, with kind eyes and nervous hands. Miss Chen? She said, standing. I'm Rebecca Morrison. This is going to sound strange, but I donated to your GoFundMe 2 years ago. My stomach dropped. Oh. I was one of the people you contacted, she continued quickly. About what happened with the money. I wanted to meet you in person, if that's okay. I'm so sorry about what happened, I started, but she held up her hand. Don't apologize. That's not why I'm here. She took a breath. I'm here because I run a nonprofit. We provide financial assistance to cancer patients for treatment-related expenses. After hearing your story, I realized we needed better safeguards. We've implemented new policies to ensure money goes directly to medical providers or patients themselves, never through family intermediaries. I stared at her. You've helped protect other people from going through what you did, Rebecca said. I wanted to thank you. And I wanted to ask if you'd consider being on our advisory board. We need voices like yours, people who understand how vulnerable patients can be exploited. I said yes before she'd finished explaining the position. Over the following months, I threw myself into the nonprofit work. It felt purposeful, like alchemy, turning my worst experience into protection for others. We revised policies, created educational materials, worked with GoFundMe and other platforms to implement better verification systems. Marcus joked that I'd found my supervillain origin story. Cancer survivor turned crusader against family financial abuse. You should get a cape? Capes are impractical, I said, but I was smiling. The work helped. It gave me a framework for understanding what had happened to me, not just personal betrayal, but part of a larger pattern of exploitation that happened when people were most vulnerable. But there were still hard days. Days when I'd see a mother and daughter shopping together, laughing, and feel something twist inside me. Days when students talked about family gatherings and I had to excuse myself. Days when the weight of what I'd lost, not the money, but the fantasy of who my family could have been, felt crushing. Marcus suggested therapy, which I'd resisted for a long time. "I'm dealing with it," I'd insisted. "You're surviving," he'd corrected gently. "That's not the same as healing." He was right, of course. My therapist, Dr. Reeves, didn't push. Didn't demand I forgive or reconcile or even fully process everything immediately. She just listened as I untangled 2 years of rage and grief and complicated, messy emotions that didn't have simple resolutions. "You're allowed to mourn what you didn't have," she told me one session. "Even while being angry at what they did. Those feelings don't cancel each other out." That concept, that I could simultaneously grieve the loss of my family and be furious at them, was revelatory. I started painting again, but differently. Not just rage, but complexity. Images of family dinner tables that were both warm and threatening. Portraits of women with soft faces and hard eyes. Gardens where beautiful flowers grew from poisoned soil. One piece in particular became something of an obsession. A self-portrait, but fractured, me in the center, surrounded by reaching hands. Some offering help, some taking. The viewer couldn't tell which was which. I called it remission. My art teacher friend, Diana, saw it at my apartment and immediately wanted to show it in a local gallery exhibition on trauma and healing. I hesitated. It felt too raw, too revealing. "That's the point," Diana said. "Art that's safe isn't art. It's decoration." The piece sold on opening night. The buyer was a woman who'd lost her sister to ovarian cancer and her inheritance to family expenses she'd never approved. She stood in front of my painting and cried. "You get it," she said simply. "Most people don't get it." That exhibition led to others. Articles in local papers about art as processing trauma. Interview requests I mostly declined because I wasn't ready to be public about the details. But the work was out there, speaking for me in ways words couldn't. Tyler saw one of the articles. I know because he sent another letter, shorter this time, with no return address. "I saw your painting," he wrote. "The one about hands that help and hurt. I know which hands we were. I'm sorry for that. I hope someday the helping hands outnumber the hurting ones." I didn't respond, but I kept the letter. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not forgive. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. And sometimes, just sometimes, the most powerful response is simply choosing not to save people who wouldn't save you. I listened to that voicemail twice, then blocked their numbers. And I've never once looked back. Well, that's not entirely true. I look back sometimes. Late at night, when the apartment is quiet and Marcus is asleep beside me. I think about the family I used to have, or thought I had. The illusion of safety that shattered the moment I became inconvenient. I think about the version of Sarah who believed family meant something sacred and unbreakable. The girl who would have forgiven anything, endured anything, to keep that fantasy alive. I don't miss her, exactly. But I mourn for her sometimes. For her innocence and her trust and her belief that love was enough. Because here's the truth they don't tell you about survival: sometimes the hardest part isn't the cancer or the treatment or even the betrayal. It's building a new life in the ruins of the old one. It's learning to trust again when trust was weaponized against you. It's accepting that some bridges burn completely, leaving nothing but ash and memory. But I'm doing it. Every day, one small choice at a time. I'm building something new, something mine, something they can't touch or steal or taint with their dysfunction. And when my phone rings now, which is rare, from numbers I actually answer, it's friends asking about dinner plans, or Marcus calling to say he'll be late, or Rebecca checking in about the nonprofit. It's not desperate voicemails demanding money. It's not mom rewriting history to make herself the victim. It's not Tyler's latest scheme disguised as an apology. It's just my life. Small and quiet and mine. And that, after everything, feels like the truest revenge of all.